Welcome to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chapter 1, Seizing Lifespan. Under the blazing sun, with clear skies and mountains all around, the earth and sky seemed to pulsate. A mountain breeze swept through, cooling Guan as he stood in the garden. Guan wiped the sweat from his forehead, his gaze fixated intensely on the blossoming plants before him, each vibrant in color, showing no signs of withering under the harsh sunlight. To his left and right stood two young men. The three had been accepted into the elixir hall under the auspices of Medicine Valley in the Supreme Sect that very day. Compared to Guan's excitement, the other two seemed disinterested, absent-mindedly wiping away sweat. Before them stood a plainly dressed young man of average looks but a sturdy build and bright eyes. He was Zhang Chunkaiyu, the senior disciple of Medicine Valley, explaining the key points of harvesting spirit flowers and spirit grass. The plants in this garden are all first-tier medicinal herbs. When harvesting, do not pull them out by the roots, cut them close to the ground instead. After cutting, wrap them in the spirit protection paper you have, to prevent the leakage of spiritual energy. Zhang Chunkaiyu's voice was loud and energetic, unaffected by the harsh sun. Guan held scissors in his right hand and several white paper strips in his left, carefully noting every word uttered by Zhang Chunkaiyu. Unlike the others, he cherished this position, having endured many a disdainful glance to seize this opportunity. Others might think he was slacking off, on the path to ruin, but little did they know, this was the perfect way for him to become stronger. All right, start now. Everyone pick one plant for me to check. Zhang Chunkaiyu had just finished speaking when Guan crouched down. Guan placed his spirit protection paper down and carefully gripped the stem of a red flower before him with his left hand. Brother, aren't you being a bit too nervous? Even if you cut it wrong, it's no big deal, it's just a first-tier herb. These are used to refine basic elixirs, I wouldn't even bother with them back home, said Meng Lang from Guan's right, his clothes luxurious, indicating a remarkable family background. Indeed, that was the case. Apart from Guan, who was a house servant, the other two were from wealthy families. However, even children of affluent families needed proper spirit root qualifications to remain in the immortal cultivation sects. All of them possessed the most common type, the 5 spirit roots, and could only stay in the Supreme Sect as servant disciples. Guan ignored Meng Lang's words and concentrated on cutting the flower. He pinched the stem, snipped gently with his scissors, then wrapped the base of the red flower with spirit protection paper. After finishing, he stood up and handed his work to Zhang Chunkaiyu for inspection. Zhang Chunkaiyu took it and smiled approvingly, "Well done, you are very meticulous." Guan didn't respond, but stared intently at the red flower in his hand. He seemed even more nervous now than before cutting it. Seconds later, a row of text appeared before him that only he could see. You have successfully harvested a red spirit flower, first tier, 1 year lifespan. Success. A smile appeared on Guan's face, the burden lifted from his shoulders. Indeed, only creatures infused with spiritual energy could have their lifespans harvested by him. The first time Guan harvested a lifespan was when he was 10 years old, accidentally bumping into a house servant carrying a pot, causing the spirit flower inside to spill and granting him 12 years of life. At that time, the court guardian flew into a rage, insisting on cutting off one of his hands, but it was the third Miss Ji Xiao who stepped in and saved him. This time, Guan's entry into the Supreme Sect was also thanks to Ji Xiao, a dual spirit root talent seen once in a century. Many great sects courted the Ji family, and with Ji Xiao leading 5 members of the Ji family into the Supreme Sect, Guan was one of only 2 house servants to join. Without Ji Xiao, with his ordinary 5 spirit roots, he could only have joined a third-rate sect. While Guan secretly rejoiced, Meng Lang and another young man named Liya had also completed their harvest. Zhang Chunkaiyu placed the 3 red spirit flowers into his storage bag and said sternly, "Today your task is to collectively harvest 50 red spirit flowers. You are only to move within this garden area, not overstepping into other areas. When completed, bring the red spirit flowers to the attic to find me." With that, Zhang Chunkaiyu turned and left. Meng Lang waved his fist at Zhang Chunkaiyu's departing back, muttering under his breath, "Such a trivial matter, and he lectured for so long, has he never mentored juniors before?" Li Yi sat directly on the ground and frantically wiped sweat with his sleeve. After seeing Zhang Chunkaiyu head upstairs, Guan turned back and said to Meng Lang and Li Yi, "Brothers, given your well-off appearance, you surely come from extremely good homes and are not used to such rough tasks, unlike me, a mere house servant. Let me take on the task. Find a shady spot to rest, and just take good care of me in the future." Upon hearing this, Meng Lang's eyes lit up, and he exclaimed excitedly, "That works, brother. Very smooth. If you ever feel you can't stay here, I'll ensure you have food and clothes for life." Li Yi, too exhausted to speak, nodded in agreement. Then, they left their spirit protection paper and supported each other as they walked out of the garden. Guan picked up the spirit protection papers, then looked back at the garden, his eyes shining brighter than the blazing sun above. In his eyes, the garden full of red spirit flowers was not merely flowers, but steps built of longevity stones that led to immortality. He began to move cautiously, not just to complete the task but to do it well, to avoid losing this perfect opportunity. The scorching sun radiated its mighty rays, showing no regard for the mortals below. Meng Lang and Li Yi took refuge in a small pavilion, wiping sweat continuously and too drained to even talk. Their gazes followed Guan. As time ticked by, sweat poured down Guan's face, but he was extremely excited, his smile never fading. Seeing the flushed face of Guan, Meng Lang couldn't help but remark, "On such a hot day, the kid really pushes himself. I like that. We'll take good care of him later, ensure he's well fed and nobody bullies him, so he can keep working for us." Li Yi rolled his eyes and responded grumpily, "There aren't many people in this valley, who's going to bully him? If senior brother ever bullies him, would you dare talk back?" Meng Lang coughed and looked at Li Yi, asking, "Brother, which Li family are you from?" Li Yi replied calmly, "The Li family from Kangsu's Changluo." "Changluo? Isn't that the imperial city? You share a surname with the imperial family?" Meng Lang asked in surprise, eyes widening as he spoke. Meng Lang did not respond but quietly looked at Guan. Meng Lang felt uneasy, as he had not expected to encounter a descendant of the imperial family here. However, upon further reflection, he thought it made sense, given that this was the supreme sect, the leading immortal cultivation sect of the Taikang dynasty. The common use of the character in both the dynasty and the sect's names was a testament to the sect's exalted status. Hence, encountering a member of the imperial family in the lower levels of the supreme sect was not unusual. After a long while, Guan finally finished picking 50 red spirit flowers, wrapped them carefully, and placed them into a bamboo basket. He hoisted the basket onto his back, looked towards other gardens, and his face brimmed with anticipation. There were more than 15 garden quarters within the valley, and the one they were in was just a small corner. He speculated that the herbs in other garden quarters might be of higher value. There was plenty of time. Guan did not want to reveal his golden finger yet, so he decided today would suffice. He walked along the path toward the pavilion, signaling to Meng Lang and Li Yi to come, and they rose to join him. "Brother Guan, you've worked hard, let me carry that," Meng Lang said with a chuckle, recalling each other's names from when they had met the valley master. Seeing through Meng Lang's intentions, Guan smiled, nodded, and handed the basket to him. Li Yi scoffed, his eyes revealing a look of disdain. Guan only wanted to keep his current job, uninterested in possibly being reassigned due to overly good performance, so he didn't bother competing with Meng Lang. The three of them entered the pavilion and met with the senior brother, Zhang Chunkaiyu. Zhang Chunkaiyu was engrossed in a book but put it down as Guan and the others entered. He said, "Place the red spirit flowers down. These 3 are basic sorcery books left by Master. Make good use of your free time to practice them, striving to leap from here to become true disciples of the Supreme Sect someday. 5 years ago, one disciple received Master's Spirit Pill, succeeded in Foundation establishment, and became an outer disciple of the Supreme Sect. As he spoke, he waved his right hand, and 3 secret books flew from his sleeve towards the trio. Guan caught one and read the title. Springwood Skill. It sounded so rudimentary. Yet, Guan was not disappointed, considering he was at the lowest level of the Supreme Sect. Zhang Chunkaiyu added a few more words of caution and then instructed them to find rooms in the adjoining courtyard to settle down. The courtyard was specifically reserved for servant disciples, and currently, only the 4 of them were disciples there. The Valley Master was away and would not return for another couple of years, leaving Zhang Chunkaiyu in charge of the Medicine Valley. 30 minutes later, Guan lay on a wooden bed, gasping for air, his face flushed, having just endured a long exposure to the sun. With a thought, rows of text appeared before his eyes. Name, Guan. Lifespan, 15/151. Spirit Root, Ordinary 5 Elements Spirit Root, can invest lifespan to evolve in cultivation. Cultivation level, non-existent, can invest lifespan to evolve in cultivation, n/o/vel/b//jn.c//om. Cultivation technique, fire control art, unmastered, can invest lifespan to evolve in cultivation. Guan had seized a total of 88 years of lifespan in one breath. Before this, his lifespan was 63 years, 12 of which he had gained at the age of 10 by breaking a flower pot, meaning he originally only had a lifespan of 50 years. First stage herbs could only provide 1 to 2 years of lifespan, but for Immortal, a single year was immense. Guan looked at his attribute panel, growing more and more excited. In such a short time, he had earned 88 years of life, making this job incredibly worthwhile. He wanted to become a permanent fixture of the Medicine Valley. He scorned the idea of being either an outer or inner sect disciple. As it was said that becoming an official disciple involved going to the mortal world to fight demons and dangers. From childhood to adulthood, Guan had never killed even a chicken, and in his previous life, he was just an ordinary person on earth. He couldn't bring himself to engage in such violence. Staying in the Medicine Valley was far better, almost free of danger and capable of crazily accumulating lifespan. Who says immortal cultivation must be a fierce struggle? Guan indulged in delightful daydreams, unable to extricate himself. Overnight passed. Guan awoke early the next morning, and after a quick wash, he went to find Zhang Chunkaiyu to receive his tasks. Zhang Chunkaiyu had not slept, he was practicing energy absorption. Pleased by Guan's diligence, he smiled appreciatively, rose from his seat, moved to the door, and pointed towards a patch of land, saying, "You may pick the spirit heart grass in that garden quarter. Once done, just leave them at the door, no need to knock." With that, he waved his sleeve, and several spirit protection papers fell into Guan's hands. Zhang Chunkaiyu, seeing Guan struggling to contain his excitement and after a moment of hesitation, revealed a friendly and kind smile and said, "Junior brother, work hard and endure hardships, and you will undoubtedly make it through." Chapter 2, 1000-Year Lifespan. As spring left and autumn arrived, the Medicine Valley of the Supreme Sect had spent a year unnoticed with the changing of the seasons. The door to a loft opened, and Guan, who was 16 years old, emerged with Meng Lang and Li Yi, stepping out of the room. They turned and paid their respects to the room, then Meng Lang closed the door behind them. All 3 heaved a sigh of relief, and then made their way down the stairs. Upon reaching their own courtyard, Meng Lang couldn't help but grumble, "All that for a lecture that lasted an ancient hour, couldn't he have just passed us the 100 herbs collection and be done with it?" Li Yi shook his head, resigned, and walked to the corner of the courtyard. He picked up a sword that was stuck in the ground and began practicing his swordsmanship. Though his spirit root qualification was mediocre, he was, after all, from the imperial family and had in his hands an exquisite set of sword techniques, which he planned to use to make a name for himself. In the Taekang dynasty, the traditions of immortal cultivation were honored. All the scholars and warriors of the court practiced immortal cultivation. At the same time, the dynasty divided the people of the 13 prefectures into classes, from low to high, slave, commoner, official, and immortal. Merchants were also ranked among the commoners. Only those who attained the class of immortals were considered true nobles. Ordinary officials could only govern in towns and cities, while the masters of commandery cities and prefects of states were all of the immortal class, not to mention the imperial city of Changluo. One must be of the immortal class to enter there. Many immortal class families would exile members with poor spirit root qualification to ensure the excellence of their bloodline, and the imperial family was no exception. Even though he had fallen from grace, Li Yi, who was of the immortal class, was not someone Guan could afford to provoke. Because he was of the slave class. Over the year, Guan had been specifically helping Li Yi and Meng Lang pick medicinal herbs, mostly during the summer days or early mornings, so his efforts had made him quite popular with the two. For other tasks such as planting, watering, and fertilizing, Guan had not assisted them, and they felt embarrassed to ask. Moreover, when it came to planting, Zhang Chunkai would watch from the loft above. Guan listened to Meng Lang's endless chatter while watching Li Yi practice his swordsmanship. Every man dreams of being a swordsman. After living together for a year, sharing each other's company day and night, the three had established a good relationship. Li Yi did not prevent them from watching him practice, since it was not feasible to practice in secrecy. Furthermore, the Li family's sword techniques came with a unique qi cultivation spell which was indispensable. Just learning the sword movements was insufficient. Meng Lang rambled on for a good while before finally winding down. He patted Guan on the shoulder and chuckled, "You seldom practice yourself, yet you're so interested in sword techniques. Why is that?" Guan replied casually, "With my mediocre talent, I'm too lazy to practice. Watching him is just a way to pass the time out of boredom. Don't you think life in Medicine Valley is dreadfully dull? Yeah, it is truly boring. If you knew what my life was like back home, with 4 maids to entertain me, you would know." Meng Lang sighed, and then his words poured out once more. Guan, used to his boastful nature, didn't bother to puncture his bubble. It wasn't until dusk that Li Yi finished practicing. He stuck his sword back into the ground in the courtyard, wiping sweat from his brow, and said, "I'm going to take a walk in the little woods." No sooner had he spoken than he headed for the gate, not waiting for a response from Guan or Meng Lang. Once he had left the courtyard, Meng Lang murmured softly, "What do you think that guy is always doing in the little woods?" Guan shrugged and replied, "How would I know? He's a scion of the imperial family, having some secrets is normal. What if one day he goes back to become a prince? How could that be possible? He's been sent out to be a servant disciple. But think about it, it's not just the supreme sect in this world. Why did he come here to be a servant disciple of all places?" Meng Lang was stunned by Guan's words, shaking his head. Then, Guan walked to the well, scooped up a bucket full of water with a wooden ladle, and drank it all in one go before he set down the ladle and left the courtyard. Meng Lang didn't follow Guan. He knew what Guan was up to, and after mumbling to himself for a moment, he returned to his room to practice. Guan arrived at a garden area where second-layer spirit grass, calming grass, was cultivated. This year, Guan only had the task of picking first-layer medicinal herbs. Moreover, these spirit grasses were not ordinary plants. They required longer periods to mature and could take years to be harvest-ready, so he hadn't collected much over the year. Zhang Chunkai said that in another month, they would be able to pick the calming grass from this garden, which would be their first time harvesting second-layer medicinal herbs. Guan was looking forward to it. In his eyes, each stalk of the deep blue calming grass was not merely an herb but a numerical value of lifespan. Suddenly, Guan noticed a calming grass plant shaking. Upon closer inspection, his expression dramatically changed, and he immediately vaulted over the fence, rushing towards it. He saw a white-haired mouse, the size of a palm, fiddling with the soil under the calming grass, seemingly trying to uproot it along with the roots. Startled by Guan's approach, the white-haired mouse darted away with the speed of lightning, vanishing beneath the wooden fence at the edge of the area, disappearing without a trace. Guan wanted to chase after the creature, but upon seeing the bitten calming grass with a broken stem, he quickly squatted down and took out a piece of spirit protection paper from his waist. With his left hand, he swiftly picked the calming grass, and with his right hand, he wrapped the roots with the spirit protection paper to prevent the escape of spiritual energy. After finishing the wrapping, Guan stood up. You have successfully seized a 4-year lifespan from calming grass, second layer. Before Guan could smile, another line of text appeared before his eyes. Your lifespan has surpassed 1,000 years for the first time, activating the lifespan detection function. Lifespan detection? Guan was inwardly curious. He looked towards another calming grass on the ground and thought check lifespan in his mind. Calming grass, second layer 4/25/102 years, age/lifespan limit. The lifespan limit of this calming grass could reach 102 years. The lifespan taken was different from its inherent lifespan. It seemed impossible to take all of a target's lifespan, most of its life dissipated upon the target's death. Guan wasn't clear on the difference between lifespan and lifespan limit, though it might have something to do with cultivation. He picked up the wrapped calming grass and rose to his feet, heading towards Zhang Chunkai's loft. All the medicinal herbs in Medicine Valley had to be handed over to Zhang Chunkai for safekeeping, and every half a year, Guan and the other servant disciples would receive their stipend from the Supreme Sect, which consisted of spirit stones and spirit pills used for cultivation. Depending on their performance, Zhang Chunkai would also grant them seeds of medicinal herbs. Guan's room contained 3 calming grass plants, one more than Meng Lang and Li Yi had, but Meng Lang and the other person did not feel envious. As soon as Guan stepped out of the courtyard, he saw a person climbing the stairs to the loft where Zhang Chunkai resided. It was a black-clad elder with a bookcase on his back and a black cloth hat on his head, appearing very mysterious. From a distance, observing the black-clad elder, Guan's mind stirred as he checked the man's lifespan, and then 2 lines of hints popped up in front of him. Chengsuan Dan, Energy Cultivation Realm 8 Layer 104/120/180. Chengsuan Dan. Master of Medicine Valley and nominally Guan's mentor, he had only heard Zhang Chunkai mention him. He had been traveling outside these years and had not met him until today. Chengsuan Dan, aged 104, would live up to 120 years, with an extreme limit of 180 years. That meant, barring accidents, he could only live for 16 more years. Guan found lifespan detection interesting as it could help him identify others' cultivation levels and qualifications. He speculated that extreme lifespan might indicate the height of one's innate talent, but this guess had to be confirmed through repeated use. Chengsuan Dan entered Zhang Chunkai's room and closed the door behind him. Guan went into Zhang Chunkai's courtyard, placed the bundled calming grass on a long table, and then turned away to leave. He returned to his own courtyard and first paid a visit to Meng Lang, who was cultivating in his room. Meng Lang, Energy Cultivation Realm 2nd Layer 17/90/190. Indeed a good for nothing. After learning about Meng Lang's lifespan, Guan didn't linger to chat and quickly went back to his own room. Only when night had fallen and he heard Li Yi's footsteps, did he rise and step out of his room. Just as Li Yi was about to head to his own house, seeing him open his door, he couldn't help but ask, "What's going on?" While checking his lifespan, Guan replied, "Master has returned. How about we visit together tomorrow?" Li Yi, Energy Cultivation Realm 6 Layer 18/210/1550. His. An extreme lifespan of 1,550 years. Is this the talent of imperial family descendants? Isn't Liya also of mixed spirit root? Guan's gaze towards Liya suddenly changed. Perhaps Liya was an undiscovered genius who would shine brilliantly eventually. And this guy's cultivation level had actually reached the 6th layer of energy cultivation realm. What does that mean? Playing the fool to catch the wise? The realms of cultivation that Guan had come into contact with, from low to high, were sequentially divided into Qi cultivation, foundation establishment, core formation, nascent soul, divinity transformation, each major realm further subdivided into 9 layers. N/O/vel/b//in.c//om. Liye, reaching the 6th layer of Qi cultivation at 18 years old, probably wouldn't need many years to achieve foundation establishment, rising to become an official disciple of the Supreme Sect. Such a genius fellow disciple must be befriended. Hearing this, Liye raised his eyebrows slightly and nodded, "Sure. You've thought it through well. Wake me up after you rise tomorrow." With that, he turned and walked towards his room. Guan watched him close the door, filled with myriad emotions. Indeed, hierarchy exists in every world, and the difference in status destined that it would be difficult for him and Liya to become true friends. Guan was not angry, having been treated with disdain and neglect as a house servant from a young age. He did not resent Liya, who seemed so unremarkable after all. It didn't matter. Possessing the golden finger to seize lifespan, Guan felt he would eventually become immortal. Before that, he aimed to keep a low profile and safely get through the phase of accruing lifespan. To ensure safety, one should avoid conflicts, stay out of trouble, and the more low-key, the better. A smile showed on Guan's face as he then turned and closed his room door. The moon was very full tonight, and its light scattered across the stone steps of the courtyard like water. In the early morning, inside the main hall, Guan, Meng Lang, and Liya stood side by side. In front of them, Cheng Xuandan sat in a chair with a cup of hot tea in his hand. Next to him stood Zhang Chunkaiu, looking very respectful. Zhang Chunkaiu, Energy Cultivation Realm 5th Layer 54/110/175. Guan thought the eldest disciple's talent was low, but then he thought, naturally, as there was more than one Medicine Valley in the Supreme Sect. To have someone like Liya emerge was already quite extraordinary. Moreover, compared to these individuals, the initial Guan was indeed the most worthless. Cheng Xuandan lifted his turbid eyes to scrutinize Guan and the others, and then spoke, "I have learned about your performances from your eldest disciple. Meeting for the first time, as your mentor, I must present you with a welcome gift. You may choose from the 100 Herbs collection, Energy Nurturing Skill, and the spell Poison Wood Vine, but you can only choose one and must not teach it to each other. If I discover that, I will punish you severely." Upon hearing this, Meng Lang was the first to speak up, "Master, I want the Poison Wood Vine." Guan thought to himself that no one would probably want the 100 Herbs collection, so he might as well let Liya choose first and do him a favor. Following this, Liya said, "Disciple would like the 100 Herbs collection." Guan looked at him in surprise. "Brother, not playing by the rules?" Chapter 3, Evolution of the Cultivation Technique, Dragon Strength Divine Primordial Skill. Meng Lang and Zhang Chunkaiu were equally astonished by Liya's choice, but they kept silent. Cheng Xuandan looked at Liya approvingly, nodded slightly, and said, "Not bad, you have an eye for quality, and you're not impulsive." With a wave of his right hand toward the table beside him, 3 secret manuals appeared on the table. He gave Zhang Chunkaiu a look, and Zhang immediately began distributing the manuals. Throughout the entire time, Guan barely had a chance to speak. "All right, I was ignored." Naturally optimistic, Guan did not get discouraged. "Though you treat me coldly today, 16 years from now, I will bear no grudges and will offer incense for you." Guan took the manual titled Energy Nurturing Skill, pretending to be happy. Recently, demons have infiltrated the Supreme Sect. Medicine Valley is located on the outskirts of the Supreme Sect, and although there are disciples patrolling, dangers still exist. Do not leave Medicine Valley on normal days, you may go now. After Cheng Xuandan gave his instructions, he waved his hand, and the three, including Guan, immediately bowed and took their leave. Guan, walking at the back, closed the door behind them as they left. Cheng Xuandan nodded slightly and said, "That young man called Liya is not simple. He seems to have practiced some technique that conceals his cultivation level. His essence, energy and spirit are not weaker than yours. Pay more attention to him in the future. Moreover, he comes from the imperial family, so don't be too harsh on him." Zhang Chunkaihu nodded. After a moment of thought, he said, "Master, Guan is the most diligent among us. Moreover, with his the poorest aptitude, he will surely stay in Medicine Valley much longer." Cheng Xuandan calmly said, "Then you take good care of him. He is in your hands now." Zhang Chunkaihu showed a smile and then thanked his master. Elsewhere, Guan and the others returned to their own courtyard. Along the way, Meng Lang talked about the demons, not at all afraid but rather excited. Liya stopped walking, looked at Guan, and said, "The energy nurturing skill is actually not bad. It can conceal one's aura and prolongs one's lifespan. I already have a cultivation technique, so I do not need it. For someone like you, the energy nurturing skill is actually a better choice." On hearing this, Guan's face lit up with a smile, and he said, "Thank you for the advice, Brother Li. I guess I'll be spending my lifetime in Medicine Valley. The 100 herbs collection doesn't really mean much to me, I can learn about herbs by following the eldest disciple." Upon hearing this, Liya nodded slightly, pleased to see Guan heed his advice. The three did not chat much and soon each went back to their own rooms. There were not many daily chores in Medicine Valley, so they had plenty of time to cultivate. Guan sat on his bed and began to read through the energy nurturing skill. Initially, he had no interest in the energy nurturing skill, but after hearing Liya mention its ability to conceal one's aura and increase lifespan, he suddenly wanted to practice it and try out his lifespan evolving ability. Over the year, he had practiced the springwood skill extended to him by Zhang Chunkaihu, making no progress, so he gave up after half a month. For him, rather than the monotonous cultivation, it was better to visit the library in Medicine Valley, looking through more books on herbs and various travelogues to broaden his horizons. Days passed by. Besides the routine check of the herbs, Guan spent his time in his room cultivating. After 15 days of cultivation, the words energy nurturing skill finally appeared in his attribute panel. However, the remark next to it still indicated it was unmastered. Guan looked at his attribute panel with a hopeful expression. It was his first time using the lifespan evolution, and he was very nervous, unsure of how much lifespan the cultivation of the energy nurturing skill would require. Though his lifespan had already exceeded 1,000 years, if it required several decades or even 100 years, he would feel the pinch. Guan stared at the energy nurturing skill in his attribute panel and silently chose to invest lifespan into evolution. Please select the amount of lifespan to invest. Seeing this line of text, Guan made his choice without hesitation, and immediately 2 lines of text popped up in front of him. You have invested 1 year of lifespan to evolve the practice of energy nurturing skill. You have cultivated the energy nurturing skill for 1 year, due to your average comprehension and aptitude, your cultivation has made no progress, but your essence energy has been enhanced. All of a sudden, Guan felt invigorated. However, the feeling came quickly and went quickly as well. That's it. The word average deeply struck Guan. Such blatant bullying. A doubt arose in Guan's mind: was aptitude related to one's spirit root? He immediately chose to invest lifespan into evolving the spirit root, putting in 100 years all at once. You have invested 100 years of lifespan for the evolution practice of spirit root. You begin to comprehend the nature of heaven and earth, increasing your spirit root's perception of nature. After 100 years, your perception of the 5 elements spirit root has improved. After reading these 2 lines of prompts, Guan brought up his attribute panel again and found that his spirit root had changed from ordinary 5 elements spirit root to a better 5 elements spirit root. Guan felt it was a loss. Seeing his lifespan shrink from 4 digits to 3 digits made him extremely distressed. It seemed that the evolution of the spirit root was a bottomless pit. Should I try the energy nurturing skill again? Such a thought popped into Guan's mind, and after trying to spend his lifespan, he had an itchy feeling in his heart. I only need to spend a year to earn 1,000-year lifespan. I'll spend a bit more today, and later I can strive to earn more. Let's indulge once today since it's my first time using this function. Guan took a deep breath and silently chose to invest 500 years of lifespan for the evolution practice of the energy nurturing skill. You have invested 500 years of lifespan for the evolution practice of energy nurturing skill. You have cultivated the energy nurturing skill for 1 year. Due to your average comprehension and aptitude, your cultivation has made no progress, but your essence energy has been enhanced. You have cultivated the energy nurturing skill for 10 years, due to your average comprehension and aptitude, your cultivation level has made no progress, but you successfully mastered the energy nurturing skill, and your chi blood has been enhanced. You cultivated the energy nurturing skill for 100 years. The constant cultivation led you to a realization about the energy nurturing skill, and it began to transform. You cultivated the energy nurturing skill for 200 years. Your energy nurturing skill merged with nature's spiritual energy and evolved into a technique of immortal cultivation. You cultivated the energy nurturing skill for 300 years. Your energy nurturing skill was promoted to spirit nurturing skill. You cultivated the energy nurturing skill for 400 years. On that day, you suddenly had an epiphany, grasped the heaven and earth true meaning, and created the dragon image nurturing primordial skill from the spirit nurturing skill. Your body and chi blood were transformed. You cultivated the energy nurturing skill for 500 years. The dragon image nurturing primordial skill reached mastery, broke through the limits of cultivation technique, and was promoted to dragon strength divine primordial skill. Your physique underwent a fundamental change. Row after row of prompts popped up in front of Guan's eyes before he could finish reading them. A flood of memories surged into his mind. A breeze blew in from the window, moving the curtains by the bed, and also fluttering Guan's black hair. With his eyes closed, he unconsciously opened his mouth, breathing in and out, with a faint sound of dragon's chant. After an indeterminate time, Guan gradually woke up. He opened his eyes and what appeared before him were the dimly lit forests outside the window. It was dark outside. Guan had now inherited all the memories of the practice of dragon strength divine primordial skill and had even directly mastered this technique. The dragon strength divine primordial skill was a technique created based on the cultivation of the dragon turtle. It could conceal one's breath, hide cultivation level, and also cultivate the dragon strength. The energy nurturing skill is part of the foundation techniques within the dragon strength divine primordial skill, basically progressing from an incomplete technique to a complete one. Guan suspected the dragon strength divine primordial skill had always existed in the world, and that the supreme sect had only obtained a fragment, hence it was named energy nurturing skill. If he were to spend another 300 years of lifespan, what kind of changes would the dragon strength divine primordial skill undergo? Guan forcefully suppressed the urge to spend more lifetimes. He felt his physique, sensing an overpowering strength within himself that gave him the feeling of immense power. He felt he could easily demolish a pavilion with a single punch. This powerful sensation was truly marvelous. Moreover, his senses had greatly improved. He could hear the breathing of Meng Lang and Li Yi, he could even hear the distant conversations between Zhang Chunqiu and Cheng Su and Dan. That demon has already killed 13 disciples, most of whom are servant disciples from various sections of Medicine Valley. Master, you and I alone may not be able to protect them, said one voice. No worries, your master has already requested a sect mission. The sect will dispatch a Foundation Establishment Realm disciple to protect our Medicine Valley, replied another. That's really great. This afternoon, the spiritual energy in the valley was a bit unusual, I even thought the demon was coming. It's embarrassing to admit that I didn't even dare to step outside, said the first voice again. Well, you grew up at your master's knee and have never been out to temper yourself. It's understandable that you are timid. Hearing their conversation, Guan broke out in cold sweat. He had been careless. In the future, while deducing techniques, he must not act carelessly. Fortunately, Zhang Chunkai's cultivation level was low, otherwise Guan's cultivation activities would have been discovered. After eavesdropping for a while and confirming that Cheng Suandan and Zhang Chunkai were not talking about him, Guan finally relaxed. He continued to feel his newfound physique while following the methods of the Dragon Strength Divine Primordial Skill to suppress his own breath to the lowest level, with his chi blood also suppressed within his body, appearing no different than before cultivation, still delicate and frail. An ancient hour later, Guan opened his eyes and accessed his attribute panel. Name, Guan. Lifespan, 16/402. Spirit Root, Good 5 Elements Spirit Root, can invest lifespan to evolve cultivation. Cultivation level, below PAR, can invest lifespan to evolve cultivation. Cultivation techniques, Fire Control Art, not mastered, Springwood Skill, not mastered, Dragon Strength Divine Primordial Skill, mastery, can invest lifespan to evolve cultivation. Dragon Strength Divine Primordial Skill, mastery. Guan looked on with satisfaction, but unfortunately, the Dragon Strength Divine Primordial Skill was a technique of physical cultivation and could not cultivate spiritual power, so his cultivation level was still below PAR. Even so, Guan felt that sweeping through the energy cultivation realm should pose no problem. Next, he could wait for his lifespan to increase. His Dragon Strength Divine Primordial Skill had now reached a great level of mastery. The strength energy surged within his body, automatically helping him increase his lifespan, although the rate of increase was still undefined. That night, Guan found it hard to fall asleep. However, despite continuously refreshing his attribute panel until sunrise, he still did not see any increase in lifespan. He had to console himself that no cultivation technique could increase lifespan by 1 year in a single day. Yes. The heavens do not disappoint those who persevere, surprises will come eventually. Guan briefly washed up and then stepped out of his room, intending to stroll through the park and soothe his mind by looking at the herbs. Coincidentally, just as he arrived at one area of the park, his gaze fixed on a white-haired mouse. It was the same mouse that had been nibbling on the calming grass earlier. Guan looked around to make sure that no one else from Medicine Valley had stepped out of their dwellings, then he quietly approached the white-haired mouse. The white-haired mouse, with its back to him and 10 yards away, didn't notice someone was approaching. When they were less than 7 paces apart, Guan surged forward like an arrow released from a bow, swiftly crossing the distance, and grabbed the white-haired mouse with his right hand. N/O/vel/b/n.c/c/om. The white-haired mouse was terrified, instantly raising its little paws in a "I surrender" gesture. Dare to steal my lifespan? Hey, you're done for. Guan laughed triumphantly as he caught the white-haired mouse. He could see the process of the mouse turning around. Too slow. Chapter 4, Demon of Greed. At midday, Guan, Meng Lang, and Liya stood in front of a wooden fence in a garden area. Meng Lang stared curiously at the white-haired old mouse in Guan's hand. Liya pondered and said, "This should be a white spirit rat. They are highly interested in spiritual resources rich in spiritual energy, hence the name treasure hunting rat. They can barely be considered spirit beasts." Upon hearing this, Meng Lang couldn't help but ask, what is the difference between spirit beasts and demon beasts? Demon beasts cultivate themselves into existence, while spirit beasts are born with the ability to perceive nature's spiritual energy. They can also cultivate, and their aura isn't as bloody as demon energy. To put it simply, spirit beasts are not as dangerous as demon beasts, explained Li Yi. Upon hearing this, Guan suddenly didn't want to kill the mouse. Meng Lang's interest grew, and he laughed with a hee-hee. Guan, how about giving this old mouse to me? Guan raised an eyebrow and cursed silently, calling him an animal, daring to ask for it. Li Yi said coldly, white spirit rats don't usually live alone. If there's one here, it means there's a nest nearby. Go catch them yourself. It's rather degrading to fight over a mouse. Upon hearing this, Meng Lang's cheeks flushed with anger, and he huffed, then I'll catch. With that, he turned and left. Once he was far away, Guan said to Li Yi, thank you. Guan found that Li Yi seemed cold but was actually quite easy to get along with, generous in nature. He didn't stop Guan from watching him practice swordplay usually, and today, he even spoke up righteously. If Li Yi hadn't spoken up, Guan would have been in big trouble. If he had to make Meng Lang cry from a beating, with that kid's volume, the commotion would be unmistakable. Li Yi looked at Guan, sizing him up, and said softly, somehow, you seem to have changed suddenly, but I can't quite put my finger on what exactly has changed. Suddenly, Li Yi grabbed Guan's wrist with his right hand. The speed seemed so slow in Guan's eyes, but instead of dodging, he pretended to be surprised. Brother Li, what are you? It's nothing. Li Yi withdrew his hand, hesitated for a moment, then added, your aura is stable, and there's no significant problem with your body, except for the lack of spiritual power. Even if your talent is mediocre, don't forget to cultivate. With effort, there is always hope. Guan nodded and started making small talk following his remark. Li Yi seemed to be in a good mood today and was quite talkative. Through him, Guan gained a deeper understanding of the immortal cultivation world. It had to be said, members of the imperial family were indeed different, possessing extensive knowledge without even traveling the world. After the time it takes to burn half a stick of incense, Meng Lang returned quickly. There's a big problem. Meng Lang came to Guan's side and whispered, his tone anxious. Guan looked up towards the entrance of Medicine Valley. Li Yi asked, what's wrong? Meng Lang's eyes widened as he said, there's a cultivator guarding the entrance of the valley. When I went up and asked him, he said he is an inner sect disciple of the sect. He had taken on our master's reward task to protect us for a month. I bet the master posted the task because of the demon we talked about earlier. What if the inner sect disciple can't fend off the demon? Wouldn't we be done for? Guan had already seen the figure of the inner sect disciple from afar, his current vision enabling him to see the person's true appearance. It was a young man dressed in a green robe, handsome and distinguished, clearly not an ordinary man. Chu Jingfeng, Foundation Establishment Realm, Level 119/290/870. Reaching Level 1 of the Foundation Establishment Realm at 19? A genius, n/o/vel/b//in.c//om. No wonder he could be an inner sect disciple. Guan looked at the inspection hint in front of him and felt a myriad of emotions. The Supreme Sect truly lived up to its reputation as the foremost institution of the Taikang dynasty, brimming with geniuses. Li Yi and Meng Lang began discussing the mysterious demon. Meng Lang thought it was preposterous, considering how powerful the Supreme Sect was, that a demon could infiltrate, and yet, after half a month, it still hadn't been caught. Li Yi, however, thought it was normal. To use his words, the Supreme Sect was too vast, and Medicine Valley being on the edge made it normal for disciples to face danger. 100 years ago, there was a demon cultivator who invaded the Supreme Sect, killed hundreds of disciples, and left unscathed. That demon might know some secret techniques, making it hard to capture. Li Yi spoke with a distant tone. Don't mention the Supreme Sect, there's no absolutely safe place in this world. The amount of spirit resources provided by the dynasty to the demon-suppressing mansion every year is an astoundingly large figure. Li started discussing the state of the world. Guan and Meng Lang listened with great interest, taking in every word. Coming from an immortal cultivation family like the Ji family, Guan had little exposure to the wider world, and this was the first time he realized how dangerous the world was. Demons roamed the land, and evil spirits ran rampant, with 3 or 4 in 10 cultivators dying at the hands of demons and evil spirits. After listening, Guan became even more fearful. He definitely couldn't go out in the future. He had to stay in the supreme sect and accumulate lifespan. Survive for 1,000 or even 10,000 years, survive until the supreme sect collapses. But our Medicine Valley has so many medicinal herbs of great significance, how could the sect send only an inner sect disciple? Meng Lang said indignantly. Li shook his head and said, there are more than 50 such medicine valleys in the supreme sect. The herbs cultivated here are not considered very precious. Inside the sect, there are more valuable medicine valleys where all the herbs are divine resources capable of changing a mortal's fate. Upon hearing this, Guan's eyes lit up, and he began to inquire about the details of that medicine valley. However, Li was only aware of the existence of that medicine valley and didn't know the specifics. After talking for a while longer, the trio eventually departed, each having to check on their assigned garden areas regularly to prevent any mishaps with the herbs. Once the inspections were finished, they each returned to their rooms. Guan tied a rope around the white spirit rat's body to prevent it from escaping. He sat cross-legged on his bed with the white spirit rat on his lap, and then he began to cultivate. He practiced the dragon strength divine primordial skill, which could enhance his strength and lifespan. As for other cultivation techniques, he was too lazy to practice them. He preferred to simply expend his lifespan when more was available. By the time night fell, Medicine Valley became more silent than it had ever been before. Now with exceptionally acute senses, Guan could hear Cheng Suandan and inner sect disciple Chu Jingfeng talking over 100 zhang away. Cheng Suandan was very respectful towards Chu Jingfeng, indicating that Chu Jingfeng was more than just an inner sect disciple. Through their conversation, Guan learned the name of that demon. The demon of greed. Chu Jingfeng was disdainful of the demon of greed. His confident tone also reassured Cheng Suandan, and Guan could distinctly feel Cheng Suandan's heartbeat returning to normal. The demon of greed. Guan's eyes flickered with curiosity, wondering whether his dragon strength divine primordial skill could exterminate the demon of greed. According to the inherited memories of the dragon strength divine primordial skill, its dragon strength had the effect of suppressing demons and exterminating evil. He had to prepare for the worst, in case Chu Jingfeng couldn't withstand it. Even with his extended lifespan, he only had one life to live. He couldn't afford to gamble with it. That night, the breath of everyone in Medicine Valley was unstable, clearly affected by their emotions. Capturing this, Guan became even more nervous. Only when dawn came did Guan begin to sleep. For the next 5 days, the demon of greed did not appear, and Guan's tense heart gradually relaxed. The 6th day. As always, as darkness descended, Guan returned to his room to rest. This time, he brought back 4 travelogues from the library, aiming to broaden his knowledge of the world. The white spirit rat scurried out from under the bed and swiftly jumped onto the table. Ever since it had experienced Guan practicing the dragon strength divine primordial skill, it had become dependent on him and wouldn't run away even if not tethered. Guan sat down at the table, teased the white spirit rat, then began to flip through a book called Green Hero Travelogue. The window was left half open, and the cool breeze of the night blew in, causing the flame of the oil lamp to flicker and casting shadows of the white spirit rat on the table, which occasionally stretched. Guan found this travelogue quite interesting. It had quite a bit about the affairs of men and women, with the green hero wandering the world, appreciating the scenery from north to south, slaying demons and monsters, as well as having brief romantic encounters. He continued reading deep into the night and felt something amiss. Why did every woman the green hero encountered like him? The man made a show of reluctance, always being half pushed and half pulled by the women. This couldn't have been written by some scholar, could it? Guan inwardly scorned the author of the book but was still engrossed in reading it. Whoosh! A gust of cold wind blew in from outside the window, and even Guan, who had cultivated the dragon strength divine primordial skill, couldn't help but shiver. He put down the book in his hand and got up to close the window. Before he reached the window, he suddenly heard a noise in the distance. He stopped and listened carefully. Demon! Meet your demise! The low shout from Chu Jingfeng made Guan's hair stand on end. Had the demon of greed arrived? But Chu Jingfeng seemed not afraid, even excited, and reliable. Ah! Just as Guan's heart began to calm, he heard Chu Jingfeng's scream, which frightened him into quickly closing the window and turning off the oil lamp. Guan retreated to a corner inside the room. The white spirit rat clearly sensed something and quickly jumped into his arms. The little creature was actually trembling too. Its trembling intensified Guan's fear. From childhood to adulthood, Guan had never encountered demons or evil spirits. It couldn't be helped, the Ji family was too safe. As a child, the most terrifying beings in his eyes were the Ji family's court guardians, resembling Zhang Fei and Li Kui. Chu Jingfeng, you'd better live up to your bravado, and Li Yi next door, with your extraordinary spirit resource and unique life pattern, you must be like the protagonist of a novel, who will ascend to greatness upon defeating that demon. Guan strived to calm his emotions, his fists clenched tightly, already condensing the dragon strength within his body. Soon, he heard the sound of the door next door being pushed open. It was Li Yi, rushing out with his sword to support Chu Jingfeng. As for Meng Lang, he was even less resilient than Guan, hiding under the bed and almost making Guan curse out loud. This good-for-nothing pretended to be so tough in front of him usually, posing as a big brother, but he turned out to be such a coward when faced with danger. Thinking this, each second that passed felt like torture to Guan. In his perception, the breath of Chu Jingfeng suddenly disappeared, and Guan didn't know whether he was dead or alive. Demon! Hold your tongue! Li Yi's voice was captured by Guan, sending chills down his spine. Was the demon planning to eat them? Then, Guan heard a thud, and Li Yi's voice abruptly ended. Was it over for him? Was he that useless? Guan's heartbeat pounded like a war drum, unable to settle down. Cheng Xuandan and Zhang Chunkaihu were hiding in their own rooms, ignoring the commotion outside, truly living up to the phrase like master, like disciple. Outside the room, silence fell, and even Guan, with his superior senses, could not detect any movement or the presence of the demon of greed. Chapter 5 Is that all? The night was silent, so quiet that the drop of a pin could be heard. Leaning against the wall, Guan was frustrated, wondering why his heartbeat was so fast. For some reason, although he couldn't hear any movement outside, he inexplicably felt that the demon of greed was approaching his house. His gaze moved back and forth between the door and the windows. Moonlight streamed in through the cracks in the door and windows, bright and terrifyingly so. The white spirit rat, trembling, made Guan's chest itch, making him want to throw it out, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Time slowly passed as Guan held his breath and focused. Guan had never longed for daylight as much as he did now. The Supreme Sect was not safe at all. In the future, he would need to accumulate more lifespan. While keeping a low profile, he must not stop growing stronger. Guan was lost in thought, not knowing how much time had passed when his gaze suddenly fixed on the threshold of his door. The door was to his left, less than a meter away. It was illuminated by the moonlight, and a dark shadow appeared in the door crack, sending shivers down his spine. The demon of greed. It was coming. Guan's heart reached his throat, his body tense. He even felt an urge to rush out. Suddenly, Guan's body stiffened. He felt a wet hand touching his head, its sharp nails pressing against his forehead, sending chills down his spine. His mind went blank as he cautiously looked up, only to see a pale arm emerging from the darkness above, looking like a woman's arm, the hand pressing on the top of his head with nails sharp as claws. The owner of the arm reached out from the darkness, a disheveled and ferocious face pushing through, her true face unclear, only her mouth full of dripping fangs visible. She was smiling. Damn! Guan was terrified to the point of madness, lashing out with his arm in anger, slapping the face of the demon of greed. Boom! The roof of the house was blasted open, flesh and blood splattering inside, tiles and turf flung dozens of feet into the air, disappearing into the night. The night sky was so dark, the mountains and forests around Medicine Valley appeared to be standing like demons and ghosts. Huff, huff, huff. Guan was gasping for air, his right arm in the air, trembling, his palm smeared with blood, the blood of the demon of greed splashed all over his face. When everything quieted down, Guan still couldn't calm himself. Moonlight poured in, illuminating the inside of the house. On the wall, a huge blossom of blood spread, horrifying and terrible, a pale severed arm lying at Guan's feet. 10 breaths later, Guan finally calmed down. You have successfully taken 52 years of life from the demon of greed, Tier 2. Staring at the notification that popped up before him, he was still gasping for breath, but his expression turned peculiar. Is that it? Guan found it ridiculous. Was he too strong, or were Chu Jingfeng and the others too weak? Just as he was puzzled, he faintly heard a door opening. He immediately lay down, closed his eyes, and casually hung the severed arm of the demon of greed over his body. That wasn't enough, he also raised his hand, pried open the palm of the demon of greed, and then grabbed his own neck. After doing all this, he spread his hands and pretended to faint. As autumn approached, the weather was no longer so hot. Guan was picking calming grass in its dedicated area while Liya and Meng Lang stood outside the wooden fence, watching him work. Half of Liya's body was wrapped in white bandages, with 2 shocking scars on his face, nearly reaching his right eye, hard to imagine what he had gone through. Meng Lang seemed unharmed. He watched Guan and clicked his tongue in wonder, this kid can still be so happy picking herbs, as if he hadn't encountered the demon of greed before. Liya's face was expressionless, his facial scars adding a fierce air to him as he calmly said, maybe he's finding solace in his hardship. How do you know he can still smile after he closes the door? The night 4 days ago seemed like just last night. Liya recalled his encounter with the demon of greed, feeling scared just thinking about it. N/O/vel/b//in.c//om. He survived purely by luck. Chu Jingfeng was more injured than him, having an arm violently torn off, while Cheng Suan Dan, Zhang Chunkaiu and Meng Lang were completely unharmed. That morning, the Supreme Sect sent several cultivators, all with higher cultivation levels than Chu Jingfeng, the highest reaching the 9th layer of the Foundation establishment realm. They questioned Guan about the specifics, and Guan pretended to be utterly frightened, claiming ignorance. Eventually, the cultivators concluded that someone else had acted, saving the life of this servant disciple from Medicine Valley, as Guan had not a trace of spiritual power, so it couldn't have been him who slew the demon of greed. Afterwards, Guan deliberately changed rooms, and Zhang Chunkaiu treated him even better, seemingly feeling guilty. As Liya and Meng Lang discussed Guan, Guan himself was relishing the joy of seizing lifespan from the second-tier medicinal herbs. Second-tier medicinal herbs could provide him with 2 to 5 years of lifespan. He helped Liya and the others pick them, this time able to gather 60 stalks in total, an incredibly delightful experience. At the same time, he couldn't help but think of the demon of greed. Slaying the demon of greed had granted him 52 years of life. Did this not imply that by eradicating demons, he could gain even more lifespan? However, as soon as he thought of that night's terrifying experience and the injuries of Chu Jingfeng and Liya, he immediately dismissed the idea. It wasn't necessary. He was not in a rush to become stronger. Why risk his life? He mustn't be reckless, he needed to develop discreetly. After a while, Guan finally finished picking 60 stalks of calming grass and, carrying a bamboo basket, he approached Meng Lang, ready to hand them over. Meng Lang cleared his throat and said, "This time, you should report it to the eldest apprentice brother." Recalling his shameful performance that night, he truly had no face to steal Guan's credit. Guan did not refuse and smiled, "Okay." He politely nodded at Li Yi, then headed towards Zhang Chunkai's loft. Li Yi didn't stay either, turning away and walking towards a distant forest, and Meng Lang looked back and forth, touching his nose awkwardly. Inside the hall, Guan handed over all of the calming grass to Zhang Chunkaiu. Zhang Chunkaiu did not ask him to leave immediately, instead, he engaged in perfunctory small talk, asking if he had been sleeping well recently. Zhang Chunkaiu often recalled how the demon of greed had throttled Guan, and his heart swelled with guilt. As the eldest apprentice brother, he had not managed to protect his junior, which was humiliating. How honest and obedient Guan was on regular days. If such a disciple were to die, truthfully, it would be distressing to even think about. Right, about the demon of greed, let's not speak of it again. Today, I heard outside that the demon was kept by a certain elder in the sect. This message shouldn't be spread, pretend it never happened, Zhang Chunkaiu earnestly said. Upon hearing this, Guan frowned. So that was it, no wonder that demon had been free to roam around for so long. Zhang Chunkaiu, seeming uneasy, added, "Such elders are not ones we can afford to provoke. A single word from them could make our Medicine Valley disappear. Coming from a humble background, you should understand the disparity that status brings. Only by being patient can we survive." He then raised his hand and pulled out a manual from his robe, saying, "This is a secret technique prepared for you by Master. Master spent 5 years of sect contribution for this, after all, you truly have suffered an injustice." Guan immediately appeared delighted, accepting the manual and seeing 3 words on the cover. Residual wind leg. "Thank you, eldest apprentice brother, thank you, Master." Guan immediately bent over to give thanks. Zhang Chunkaiu blinked and smiled, "Practice it when you have free time. Maybe in the future it could protect you. Don't share this manual with Meng Lang." As for Li Yi, he has shown exceptional talent and Master has decided to help him break through the Foundation establishment realm. I guess in 2 years at most, he will leave Medicine Valley. Guan, upon hearing this, was not surprised. Someone of Li Yi's cultivation remaining in Medicine Valley would indeed be a waste. Then, after exchanging pleasantries with Guan, Zhang Chunkaiu let him leave. Once Guan closed the door, Zhang Chunkaiu murmured quietly, "Truly an honest kid, he can definitely take care of Master for me in the future, so I can finally leave the mountain. Lotus, wait for me." As Guan descended the stairs, his steps faltered momentarily, but then he continued downwards. Although the attack by the demon of greed had not resulted in any deaths in Medicine Valley, it had changed the atmosphere markedly. Li Yi became even more mysterious, hiding in the forest after finishing his chores, and even Meng Lang started practicing with more diligence. Guan practiced the residual wind leg from the manual for a month, managing to barely make the technique appear on display, which was a big blow to him, leading him to give up practicing and plan to try his luck later. Seasons changed, autumn leaves covered Medicine Valley. Guan's figure constantly appeared in various parts of the valley, becoming the busiest person in Medicine Valley. Zhang Chunkaiu trusted him more and more, no longer supervising his work. As for Chengsu and Dan, he stayed in his house refining elixirs all day, hardly seen once a month. As autumn turned to winter, the white snow blanketed everything, engulfing Medicine Valley in a white vastness. A new year arrived amid the heavy snow. Until the winter snow began to melt, finally, some people from outside the valley came to visit, specifically looking for Guan. Inside the room, Guan closed the door, then walked over to the table to pour hot tea for the young man already seated there. The youth, dressed in the Supreme Sect outer disciple's blue robe, surveyed the room while asking, how have you been this past year and a half? Among those who followed Ji Xiao to join the Supreme Sect were 5 individuals, including Guan and the youth in front of him, both house servants. The youth, named Du Yat, with the 4 spirits root, had joined the Supreme Sect's outer sect with the help of Ji family, and had changed considerably over the year. Not bad, Guan casually replied. Du Yat looked at him, shook his head slightly, and said, You insisted on coming here. With the third Miss and Ji family's influence, sneaking you into the outer sect wouldn't have been difficult. Why choose to suffer here with no hope of cultivation? Guan looked at his lifespan of less than 150 years, then compared it with his own nearly 1,000 years, and said with a smile, My qualifications are mediocre, and I am afraid of both death and pain. Places like this, quiet and secluded, suit me better. Du Ye shook his head with a chuckle, criticized him for a bit, then revealed the purpose of his visit. Young Master Jilin is planning to create an influence for the third miss within the Supreme Sect and gather connections. We all have to contribute. Collecting medicinal materials diligently on your part, I'll come every 6 months to collect them. These materials can serve as the bargaining chips for young Master Jilin to win over other disciples. Okay, no problem, Guan agreed in one breath, since medicinal materials weren't very important to him anyway. Seeing how agreeable Guan was, Du Ye smiled. After chatting for a while longer, Guan escorted Du Ye to the valley entrance before turning back. Just as he returned to the courtyard, he saw Li Ye waiting. Li Ye approached Guan, placing a manual against his chest, and said, I'm preparing to leave. Consider this sword technique a farewell gift. Thank you for everything you've done for me these past 18 months. Chapter 6, The Very Fat Outer Sect Disciple. Guan caught the secret manual and felt a subtle feeling in his heart. Although he had known that Li Ye was going to leave, when he actually heard that he was leaving, there was an unexpected twinge of reluctance in his heart. In Medicine Valley, he had only 2 friends, after all, he had nothing to talk about with Cheng Suandan and Zhang Chunkaiu. Li Ye was so much better than Meng Lang, who was nothing but an animal. Are you preparing for foundation establishment? Guan asked. He had used lifespan detection and saw that Li Ye's cultivation level had already reached the 9th layer of the energy cultivation realm. Such a fast breakthrough speed! Could it be that there was a senior in the forest giving him guidance? Or perhaps Li Ye housed the soul of an old man who had suffered betrayal and persecution? Li Ye nodded and said, I plan to begin foundation establishment next month. He paused for a moment, then said earnestly, once we part this time, I'm afraid we may not meet again. Don't be too submissive to Meng Lang in Medicine Valley, that would only embolden him to take advantage of you even more. There will surely be other disciples in the future, and as a senior brother, you must assert your own temperament. Guan was speechless. How come he was being lectured by 2 people in one day? But compared to Du Yat, Li Ye was more sincere. Guan suddenly felt a sense of loss. Since childhood, he had trodden on thin ice in the Ji family without any real friends, only people he deliberately tried to please. He had never had a friend who would give him a gift like Li Ye. He understood that what Li Ye said would come true. This separation could be for a lifetime. Guan couldn't help saying, the same goes for you. Don't be as reckless as before. Staying alive is the most important thing. If you can rise from a servant disciple to someone on the verge of foundation establishment in less than 2 years, your talents must be top-notch. As long as you live, you will undoubtedly become a famous top-grade cultivator who will shake the world. Upon hearing this, Li Ye couldn't help but smile. The 2 stood in the courtyard and chatted, and soon, Meng Lang returned. Hearing that Li Ye was leaving, he was also quite downhearted. In the end, Li Ye did leave. After saying goodbye to Guan, he went to visit Cheng Suandan, and finally, Zhang Chunkaiu took him away from Medicine Valley. Winter snow had not yet fully melted, and Medicine Valley became much quieter. When Guan had free time, he began to practice the sword manual that Liya had given him. His aspirations were not high, he didn't seek to master it, but at least wanted to become skillful enough to have it appear on the attribute panel. Making a cultivation technique or a secret manual appear on the attribute panel takes time, and Guan didn't want to find out too late during a moment of danger when he might need to sacrifice lifespan to practice it. The sword manual Liya had given was titled Li Family 7 Swords. Though the name was quite common, Guan knew that this Li family represented the Taikang dynasty's imperial family, so he practiced it diligently. As winter gave way to spring, the vibrant life bloomed throughout Medicine Valley. After Liya's departure, Zhang Chunkaihu brought back a 14-year-old boy named Xiao Chuan. Xiao Chuan was a reclusive teenager and seldom interacted with Guan and Meng Lang after he entered Medicine Valley. After Guan helped him collect spirit grass several times, Xiao Chuan developed a fondness for him, and they gradually conversed more, but overall, Xiao Chuan remained a man of few words. Time progressed into summer, and Guan learned from the attribute panel that he had turned 17. From childhood, he had never known the exact date of his birthday, and he did not care about it. More than a birthday, what Guan looked forward to was when he would be able to pick third-grade spirit grass. Most of the spirit grass in Medicine Valley needed several years before it could be picked, so his lifespan growth rate was not always increasing and had recently started to slow down. On this day, Zhang Chunkaihu found Guan. "Junior brother Gu, I have a task here with a decent reward. Would you be willing to take it?" Zhang Chunkaihu said with a beaming smile. Guan raised an eyebrow. There were tasks within Medicine Valley? Suppressing his reluctance, he asked, "May I ask senior brother, what is the task?" "There's an outer disciple who is about to go out for experience and won't be back for 2 years. The task is to take care of the spirit grass in his cave dwelling until he returns. When he does, he will reward you with 10 mid-grade spirit stones," Zhang Chunkaihu said with a smile. As soon as Guan heard this, his heart was moved. Spirit stones are graded from low grade to mid grade to top grade to supreme grade, each level valued 100 times more than the last. A mid-grade spirit stone is equal to 100 low-grade spirit stones, and Guan's monthly remuneration was just 1 low-grade spirit stone. The task was equivalent to getting 1,000 low-grade spirit stones in 2 years. How could he not be moved? Guan hesitated and asked, "Can that senior be trusted?" Zhang Chunkaihu was taken aback, then burst into laughter. He said with approval, "Not bad, junior brother Gu, you are very cautious. Rest assured, that man is an old friend of mine. We entered the Supreme Sect in the same year. The reason he chose you is because of your hard work and honesty. If it were Meng Lang, I wouldn't be at ease. Plus, his cave is not far from our Medicine Valley, it's only a dozen li away. You just need to go twice a month." After hesitating for a while, Guan ultimately agreed. Recently, he hadn't had the chance to pick spirit grass for half a month. Watching his lifespan not increase made him very uncomfortable. He was missing the feeling of sacrificing lifespan to gain more. The Dragon Strength Divine Primordial skill could only bring him a year's increase in lifespan each month. If it weren't for the golden finger that allowed him to seize lifespan, he would certainly be content, but now, he was greedy. And besides, he was unsure how long the effect of the Dragon Strength Divine Primordial skill to increase lifespan would last, as everything has its limits. Seeing that he had agreed, Zhang Chunkaihu immediately led him towards the valley exit. Guan hadn't left Medicine Valley in 2 years, the thought of actually leaving the valley made him a bit nervous. As he stepped out of the valley, the sight of continuous mountains and forests greeted him. Sunlight streamed through the trees, forming circles of rainbow rays that were extraordinarily beautiful. Zhang Chunkaihu patted his waist, and a sword flew out from the storage bag there. He grabbed Guan's arm, leapt up, and landed on the sword, following which they flew on the sword. Guan, frightened, held tightly onto his waist. The hot summer wind blew his dark hair into a mess, envy in his eyes. Sword control, this is a hallmark of cultivators. He hadn't expected Zhang Chunkaiyu to possess such a skill. Feeling the strength of his grip, Zhang Chunkaiyu laughed heartily. Junior brother Gu, you better keep your eyes wide open and memorize the way back, as you'll have to come on your own in the future. Guan couldn't help but ask, Senior brother, could you teach me this sword control technique? Only if you diligently cultivate and reach the 4th layer of the energy cultivation realm, will I teach you sword control technique. The 4th layer of the energy cultivation realm. As long as you are willing to work hard, one day you will certainly reach the 4th layer of the energy cultivation realm. While saying this, Zhang Chunkaiyu couldn't help but straighten his back and reveal a hearty and sunny smile. In his heart, he couldn't help thinking, in junior brother Gu's eyes, my image must be very grand right now. I hope he is truly inspired and will no longer be lazy in his cultivation. In his eyes, Guan was good in every aspect except for his lack of interest in cultivation. In his free time, that kid was always reading books. Guan was quite speechless. Was reaching the 4th layer of the energy cultivation realm very difficult? If I consume 100 years of my lifespan, would that work? No? Then how about 500 years? If 500 years don't suffice, then... This is ridiculous. The two brothers flew on their swords, chatting as they went. Before long, they landed in a forest, and after touching down, Guan was still savoring the feeling of flying in the sky. Zhang Chunkaiyu led Guan forward, passing through a dense forest to arrive in front of a cliff face. He raised his hand and took out a jade pendant, pressing it into a slot on the cliff. This cave has restrictions. You'll need to bring this jade pendant in the future. Don't ever lose it, it would be quite a hassle, Zhang Chunkaiyu cautioned. Guan nodded. Following that, the cliff trembled, a stone door emerged and then opened up. Zhang Chunkaiyu removed the jade pendant and led Guan inside. The two vanished into the darkness, and a few breaths later, the stone door thunderously closed. The cave was larger than Guan had anticipated. Just the tunnel itself was 30 feet long. They arrived in a spacious cave chamber, where Guan's gaze was instantly drawn to an area planted with herbs. The herbs were densely planted, at least 100 of them, occupying most of the space in the chamber. With Guan's current level of understanding, he could tell at a glance that these herbs were not of ordinary grade and rank. Are all the outer disciples of the Supreme Sect this wealthy? Zhang Chunkaiyu began to instruct Guan, pointing out which herbs should be harvested and detailing the specific processes of cultivating each type of herb. The cave came equipped with its own restrictions and did not lack water, but too much could cause the herbs to die abruptly. Some herbs, if not harvested in time, could even ignite with spiritual energy flames, resulting in the destruction of all the herbs. Also, there were seeds on the table. After Guan completed the harvesting, he would need to continue planting. The outer disciple had already prepared spirit protection papers in advance, also placed on the table. All right, I'll leave now. You come back on your own after you finish. First, try to see if you can find your way back. If you haven't returned to Medicine Valley by evening, I'll come looking for you. Zhang Chunkaiyu patted Guan's shoulder and then handed him the jade pendant. Guan was not discourteous. He sent Zhang Chunkaiyu off before returning. He didn't immediately begin harvesting herbs, but instead, he surveyed the cave chamber. It was very simple, with only a stone bed, a stone table, and 2 stone stools. No, there were also books hidden on the cave walls, obscured by strands of vines. Guan had no intention of browsing through them. What if the cultivators had some sort of surveillance restriction in place, n/o/vel/b//in.c//om? It's better to honestly earn lifespan and not cause any trouble. Guan started to harvest the mature herbs. You have successfully stolen 9 years of spirit flame grass, 3rd grade, lifespan. SSS. 3rd grade herbs. Suddenly, Guan didn't know whether it was his own misunderstanding of the grade and rank of the herbs or if the treatment for outer disciples was indeed far superior to that of his position in Medicine Valley. Forget it, enjoy it first. The first batch of herbs to be harvested was 11 in total, granting him 89 years of lifespan, which made his total lifespan reach 1,264 years. Using lifespan detection, Guan took a look around and actually spotted 4th grade spirit grass. Such a well-off outer disciple. Guan was very pleased inside. Such a lucrative employer was someone to maintain a good relationship with for the possibility of long-term cooperation. Wait a minute. Couldn't he also do this kind of work for other disciples of the Supreme Sect? After all, every disciple would experience going out for adventures. No, first get this job done well. One must be steady and thorough. What if he encountered evil people trying to extort him? He was merely a servant disciple, and if he were to have a conflict with an official disciple, he would certainly be the one to be discarded. Guan started planting the spirit flame grass seeds. He did so with great care, wanting to do a good job. 30 minutes later, Guan came out of the cave and closed the cave door behind him. Then, he headed in the direction of Medicine Valley. Wary of encountering demons like the demon of greed again, he walked quickly. With the power of dragon strength divine primordial skill, in less than an hour, Guan arrived at the entrance of Medicine Valley. Before he even approached, he spotted someone. Chu Jingfeng. Chu Jingfeng, with his right arm severed, had a weather-worn face and wore a black robe, looking completely different from before. Chapter 7, 3000-year lifespan, Crisis Rebirth. When Guan saw Chu Jingfeng saw him as well. Just as Guan was about to quicken his pace to greet him, Chu Jingfeng leapt up several meters high, soared over the hillside, and landed in front of him like a wild goose. "You are Guan, I have questions for you," Chu Jingfeng said gravely. Guan feigned nervousness as he bowed in respect and responded, "I am. What would the senior like to ask?" "I will answer truthfully." Seeing Guan's honest demeanor, Chu Jingfeng's expression softened, and he said softly, "You encountered the demon of greed, and she even choked you, do you still remember her face?" Guan shook his head and said, "That night, there was no oil lamp lit inside the room, I could not see her face clearly, she appeared suddenly and scared me into fainting." While speaking, he secretly circulated his qi blood to make his face instantly flush red. Chu Jingfeng, seeing him so embarrassed, felt his anger dissipate significantly. "What am I doing, harassing a servant disciple?" Chu Jingfeng thought self-deprecatingly. His expression became gentle, and he said, "If you remember anything or encounter anything, you can contact me." After speaking, he took out a spirit stone the size of a chicken egg and said, "This is a special spirit stone, you can communicate with me by infusing it with spiritual power." He tossed the spirit stone to Guan, then leapt up again, a long sword flying out at his waist. He stepped on the sword and rushed out of the forest, leaves falling in his wake. Whether it was an illusion or not, Guan always felt that he had grown stronger after his arm was severed. Guan did not think much of it and walked with the spirit stone towards Medicine Valley. "Ah, when will I be able to have my own storage bag?" The youth walked on a hillside in the woods, the dappled sunlight casting a colorful garment on him. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed. 19-year-old Guan walked in the woods, looking somewhat taller than 2 years ago, and his physique much stronger. Despite wearing simple linen clothes, he looked clean, especially his bright eyes, his long hair casually tied at the back of his head with a grass rope, and 2 strands of hair falling on his forehead, adding a free-spirited charm to his demeanor. Behind him, a young boy followed, ordinary in appearance and a head shorter than him, carrying a bamboo basket, wiping the large drops of sweat off his forehead as he walked. "Senior brother, how much farther?" Xiao Chuan called out weakly. He was the only one in Medicine Valley junior to Guan, and he liked following behind Guan. Hearing that Guan also managed a cave for outer disciples, he pleaded for a long time until Guan finally agreed to bring him this time. Guan agreed to bring him along for a reason. Because he had heard from Zhang Chunkaiyu yesterday that the owner of the cave had returned, and to prevent any accidents, he decided to bring Xiao Chuan. If the other party had malicious intentions, seeing another person might make them hesitate. Guan did not wish to harm Xiao Chuan. Should there be trouble, his dragon strength divine primordial skill was not for naught. Almost there. Guan said without turning back, to be honest, he was beginning to understand why Zhang Chunkaiyu liked him. Having such a well-behaved junior disciple indeed saved him a lot of trouble. Xiao Chuan moaned, he had heard those two words no less than 8 times, had he known this, he would not have come. 10 li was already a considerable distance for ordinary people, let alone with rugged mountain paths and hot weather. Xiao Chuan felt like he was about to die. Guan did not continue to comfort him because they were indeed almost there. About half an ancient hour later, Guan pushed through the bushes and arrived in front of a mountain wall. He did not directly open the mountain gate but cupped his fists and said, "Junior Guan, here to return the cave's jade pendant to the senior." Xiao Chuan stood on the other side of the bush, curiously scrutinizing the mountain wall. His background was not much better than Guan's, with limited knowledge of the immortal cultivation world. Seeing an outer disciple of the supreme sect was a big deal in his eyes. Rumble. The mountain gate opened, and a hoarse voice came from inside. "Come in." Guan turned to Xiao Chuan and said, "Wait for me outside." Xiao Chuan naturally dared not follow him inside, seeing the cave gate open was already more than he expected. Guan stepped forward into the cave, exuding more confidence than he had 2 years ago. His confidence came from his accumulated lifespan. His lifespan had now reached more than 3,400 years. Apart from the herbs inside the cave, in the past 2 years, Cheng Xuandan had also started instructing him to pick grade 3 herbs, so his lifespan increased rapidly. A person's confidence comes from strength, and although Guan had only a trace of spiritual power, he was greatly changed from before. Passing through the tunnel, Guan saw a man sitting by a stone table. It was a middle-aged man, thin, with his Taoist robe hanging loose on his body, hair graying at the temples, sunken eyes and prominent cheekbones, giving off a deeply calculating impression. From the first glance, Guan felt this man was not easy to handle. Zhu Moyan, Energy Cultivation Realm 9 Layers 58/130/140. This lifespan limit was even less than Zhang Chunkai's, indicating his natural talents were inferior to Zhang Chunkai's. The fact that his cultivation was higher than Zhang Chunkai's was probably due to accumulation through elixirs. Guan speculated as he quickly walked up to Zhu Moyan, took out the cave's jade pendant, and offered it with both hands. Zhu Moyan reclaimed the jade pendant and said softly, "You did well, I am satisfied. This bag contains 10 mid-grade spirit stones, take them with you." He picked up the cloth bag from the table and handed it to Guan. Guan respectfully received the cloth bag, secretly weighed it, and then thanked Zhu Moyan. "You can go now," Zhu Moyan said, waving his hand. Guan nodded, bowed again, then turned around and left. As he turned around, his keen eyes caught something, and his reaction was swift, immediately casting a lifespan detection. Demon of Greed, 2nd rank 31/140/180. Guan left swiftly without changing his expression. Zhu Moyan watched Guan's retreating figure, his eyes growing cold, and only when he heard the sound of the mountain gate closing did he snort coldly and mutter to himself, "You're lucky." The restrictions in the cave of an outer disciple were of low level. The so-called restrictions were a type of magical mechanism, and naturally, those of outer disciples were not sophisticated, so Guan outside the cave heard Zhu Moyan's muttering, which made him even more uneasy. There really was a problem. Guan had suspected before why the demon of greed had attacked all the way without affecting Zhu Moyan's cave along the route. It turned out this guy was related to the demon of greed. "Brother, did it go smoothly?" Xiao Chuan looked at the approaching Guan and asked with concern. Guan revealed a smile and said, "It went smoothly, let's go, it's time to head back." Xiao Chuan nodded, and the two headed in the direction they came from. Only after they had walked some distance did Xiao Chuan start to ask what kind of person the cave owner was. Guan gave a brief description, which left Xiao Chuan captivated. During the journey that followed, Guan had no mood to interact with Xiao Chuan. His mind was filled with thoughts of the demon of greed and Zhu Moyan's words. No, he couldn't pretend he hadn't seen anything, it was too dangerous. Guan thought of the spirit stone left by Chu Jingfeng and decided to seek Chu Jingfeng's help. But before that, he needed to enhance his strength, just in case. N/O/vel/b//in.c//om. Having not cultivated dangerously for 3 years, just the thought of it excited Guan. The dragon strength divine primordial skill could conceal his aura, even though he possessed spiritual power, he could hide it well. This time, he planned to first enhance his cultivation level, then improve his offensive methods. Should I evolve the residual wind leg, or the Li family's 7 swords? Guan began to agonize over this decision. An ancient hour later, the two finally returned to Medicine Valley, where Guan took the bamboo basket from Xiao Chuan and then walked to his own courtyard. The bamboo basket was filled with ordinary medicinal herbs they had picked along the way. Xiao Chuan was exhausted, without the energy to do anything else, so he headed directly to his own courtyard. Guan returned to his room, closed the door, placed the bamboo basket and cloth bag on the table, then went to sit on his bed. He took a deep breath, first sensing the aura of others in Medicine Valley. Meng Lang was practicing spells in the forest, Cheng Xuandan was engaged in alchemy, and Zhang Chunkai was struggling with energy absorption. Nobody seemed to be paying attention to him. Guan brought up his attribute panel. Name, Guan. Lifespan, 19/3463. Spirit root, 5 elements better spirit root, can invest lifespan to evolve cultivation. Cultivation level, energy cultivation realm level 1, can invest lifespan to evolve cultivation. Cultivation techniques, fire control art, not mastered, springwood skill, not mastered, dragon strength divine primordial skill, mastery, can invest lifespan to evolve cultivation. Ultimate skills, residual wind leg, not mastered, Li family's 7 swords, not mastered, can invest lifespan to evolve cultivation. Guan cautiously invested 1 year of lifespan into his cultivation. You have cultivated using energy absorption for 1 year, due to your mediocre talent and the average grade of the cultivation technique, your cultivation level did not increase much. This prompt appeared, and Guan felt a change within his body. A thread of spiritual power turned into 2. Guan's mouth twitched involuntarily, forcing him to turn his gaze to the springwood skill. It was the only energy absorption skill he had mastered. As for the fire control art, it was a supporting skill. An old servant from the Ji family had taught him this while he was chopping firewood, aptly named for controlling fire strength. Forget it, no need to wait for a more profound technique, since I can use lifespan evolution, even the most ordinary technique can be promoted to an unparalleled divine skill in my hands. With this thought, Guan's eyes became resolute. He decided to invest 100 years of lifespan into cultivating the springwood skill. You cultivate the springwood skill for 1 year, and due to your mediocre comprehension and talent, your achievement in the springwood skill improved slightly. You cultivate the springwood skill for 10 years, finally mastering the springwood skill, your energy absorption rate increased. You cultivate the springwood skill for 50 years, finally achieving great mastery in springwood skill, your energy absorption rate reached 10 times the previous rate. You cultivate the springwood skill for 100 years, you gain new insights into springwood skill, upgrading it to spring origin art. A flood of memories related to the cultivation of the spring origin art poured into Guan's mind. The spring origin art was far less complex than the dragon strength divine primordial skill, so before long, Guan opened his eyes. After opening his eyes, he first listened to the sounds of others in Medicine Valley. Xiao Chuan had fallen asleep, and everyone else was busy with their own tasks. Nobody seemed to have noticed him for the moment. Now came the dilemma. Should he continue to enhance the spring origin art, or directly use the spring origin art to evolve his cultivation level? The higher his mastery of the cultivation technique, the faster Guan could enhance his cultivation level, which would also save on the investment of lifespan. After much thought, Guan felt that the cultivation technique was the most important and should not be taken lightly. First, he would invest 1,000 years. Chapter 8 Divine Wood Pure Yang Skill, Position of the Eldest Senior Brother. Guan did not immediately invest his lifespan in evolutionary cultivation because of the example set by the Dragon Strength Divine Primordial Skill. He feared the disturbance would be too great. Let's wait until tonight. By then, even if there's a great disturbance, given the timid nature of Cheng Suandan and Zhang Chunkaiu, they would probably be scared into hiding and not dare to leave their houses. Night swiftly fell. Only after Meng Lang settled down to rest in his room did Guan bring up his attribute panel. He focused on the spring origin art and chose to invest 1,000 years of his lifespan to evolve it. May the heavens bless me, please don't waste these 1,000 years of my lifespan. While praying, Guan also gave the white spirit rat a rub for some good luck. You have invested 1,000 years of lifespan in the evolution and cultivation of spring origin art. You have cultivated the spring origin art for 1 year, and because of your mediocre comprehension and qualifications, the growth in your cultivation level is minimal. You have cultivated the spring origin art for 10 years, and you have reached a whole new realm of understanding. You have cultivated the spring origin art for 100 years, and you have gained deeper insights into the great earth and forests, developing more thoughts about the spring origin art. You have cultivated the spring origin art for 200 years, and your spring origin art has advanced to the withered wood spring birth skill. You have cultivated the spring origin art for 500 years, and your understanding of the withered wood spring birth skill has reached the transformation realm, enhancing your wood spirit root. You have cultivated the spring origin art for 800 years, and you have sensed the nature's spirit, elevating your withered wood spring birth skill to the divine wood pure yang skill. You have cultivated the spring origin art for 1,000 years, and your mastery of the divine wood pure yang skill has reached perfection, enhancing your wood spirit root. Looking at the series of prompts before his eyes, Guan caught a few keywords and was suddenly overjoyed. Then, a flood of memories poured into his mind. His consciousness was immersed in the inheritance, his entire being emanated a green light, and wisps of verdant spiritual energy sprouted from the ground inside the room. At the same time, Zhang Chunkaiu, who was practicing inside his house, opened his eyes. He looked toward his windowsill, where a sudden gust of wind began shaking his window. He hurriedly got up, walked to the window, and with only a glance outside, he swiftly closed it. He walked quickly back to his desk, blew out the oil lamp, and then hid in bed. No, I must leave early. Medicine Valley is becoming more and more bizarre. Meng Lang was also scared, he shivered under his blanket. Xiao Chuan, exhausted from the day's events, was already sleeping like a log, snoring thunderously. Cheng Suandan sat in meditation in front of the pill furnace. Sensing the activity outside the window, he looked into the night sky. His gaze was profound, without a trace of fear or curiosity, as serene as a deep well. After a long while, Guan finally awoke. When he opened his eyes, he felt as if the entire world had changed. He could clearly sense the wood attribute spiritual energy in the air and could feel the vitality of the plants and trees, a very marvelous sensation. With a thought, the previous prompts reappeared before him. Seeing that his wood spirit root had been enhanced, he was pleasantly surprised. To think that one's spirit root could be improved through the cultivation of techniques meant that he needn't forcefully enhance his spirit root qualification, which was a bottomless pit. Guan had tried it only once but was already traumatized by the experience. He tried to operate the Divine Wood Pure Yang skill and, unlike before, he could now effortlessly absorb the wood spirit energy from the world around him. The wood spirit energy entered his body, flowed into his danshan, and transformed into wood attribute spiritual power. The whole process was smooth and slick. Just a single breath was more effective than half a year's worth of his previous efforts. Guan suddenly felt as if he were dreaming, as though he had become a genius overnight. In this case, there was no rush to enhance his cultivation level. He had unlocked lifespan detection when his lifespan broke through 1,000 years, and perhaps when it surpassed 10,000 years, new abilities might emerge. Moreover, with his current rate of cultivation, he felt he could rely on cultivation to enhance his cultivation level. While there was no rush to enhance his cultivation level, his offensive methods needed improvement. The Dragon Strength Divine Primordial skill was a supporting skill without any specific combat techniques. His gaze then fell on the residual wind leg. The Li family's 7 swords were swordsmanship techniques, and he lacked a treasured sword. Moreover, the effectiveness of swordsmanship probably relied on one's cultivation level. The residual wind leg was different as it relied on legs. His physical strength was already sufficient to easily kill a demon from the Foundation Establishment realm. If he combined it with the residual wind leg, the power would surely increase significantly. How much lifespan should he invest? Guan fell into a dilemma: too little investment would be meaningless, and too much would be heart-wrenching. Forget it, let's go with a round number, 500 years it is. Excited, Guan invested 500 years of his lifespan in the evolutionary cultivation of the residual wind leg. You have cultivated the residual wind leg for 1 year, and because of your mediocre comprehension and qualifications, your movement technique is smooth but fails to unleash the full power of the residual wind leg. You have cultivated the residual wind leg for 10 years, and years of arduous practice have brought your residual wind leg to the pinnacle. You have cultivated the residual wind leg for 100 years, your residual wind leg has returned to its purest form, and you have gained new insights, advancing your residual wind leg to the wind shadow leg. You have cultivated the residual wind leg for 200 years, and your wind shadow leg is fully realized, improving your understanding of body techniques. You have cultivated the residual wind leg for 400 years, and your wind shadow leg has transitioned into the gale shadowless leg. You have cultivated the residual wind leg for 500 years, your gale shadowless leg has reached the realm of integration, enhancing your understanding of body techniques and movement technique. Does a better understanding of body and movement techniques mean an improvement in comprehension? Just as Guan had this thought, his mind was instantly flooded with the memories of the gale shadowless leg. At the break of dawn, as the first rays of sunlight schemed over Medicine Valley, before even touching the threshold of Guan's house, the door was already opening. Guan walked into the yard and faced the rising sun, stretching lazily, his spirit and vitality completely transformed. His face was full of smiles, and his excitement had not fully subsided. He silently summoned his attribute panel. Name: Guan. Lifespan: 19/1862. Spirit root: first-rate wood spirit root, 4 attributes above average spirit root. Lifespan can be invested for evolutionary cultivation. Cultivation level: energy cultivation realm 2nd layer. Lifespan can be invested for evolutionary cultivation. Cultivation techniques: fire control art, unachieved; divine wood pure yang skill, mastery; dragon strength divine primordial skill, mastery. Lifespan can be invested for evolutionary cultivation. N/O/vel/b/jn.c//om. Ultimate skill: Gale Shadowless Leg, achieved mastery. Li family's 7 swords, unachieved. Lifespan can be invested for evolutionary cultivation. Energy cultivation realm 2nd layer. Just last night, during the inheritance of divine wood pure yang skill, his spiritual power had increased substantially. Coupled with a night of energy absorption cultivation, he had smoothly broken through to the 2nd layer of the energy cultivation realm. He was no longer the powerless waste. The feeling of spending lifespan was just too awesome. Guan had more ideas about his path to immortal cultivation. He didn't consider adventuring, while slaying demons and ghosts to obtain lifespan could accelerate his lifespan growth, the risk of death would skyrocket. What he thought of was the Medicine Valley's master. Cheng Xuandan didn't have many years left to live, and Zhang Chunkaihu meant to descend the mountain. The position of Valley Master was his for the taking. When the time came, he could recruit a group of servant disciples to tend the gardens for him. He would only be responsible for the harvest, an idyllic arrangement. Guan placed his hands on his hips and looked around at the surrounding peaks. Perhaps more medicinal herbs could grow on the mountain. Cheng Xuandan didn't expand Medicine Valley, possibly because expansion had no meaning for him. He was just a worker for the Supreme Sect. But for Guan, it was different. He didn't need to share more herbs, all he wanted was the lifespan contained within them. The more Guan thought about it, the more excited he became, and he began kicking in place, stretching his body. He was practicing the leg techniques of the residual wind leg, powerful and imposing, the movements creating blasts of air. Before long, Meng Lang walked out of the neighboring house and caught sight of Guan's leg technique, his eyes widening in amazement. 19-year-old Guan had fully grown into his body, his legs whipping through the air like a lash. Though he didn't move his stance, the force of the air reached Meng Lang's face, leaving him dumbfounded. Meng Lang couldn't help but rub his eyes, wondering if he had mistaken someone else for Guan. When had Guan become so formidable? Feeling Meng Lang's gaze, Guan stopped his kicks, turned around to look at him, and smiled, "Did I wake you up?" Meng Lang hurriedly approached him, scrutinizing him carefully before saying, "How did you suddenly become so powerful? Did you notice the demon wind last night? Does it have anything to do with you?" Guan rolled his eyes at him, saying, "That's right, it was me. Last night as I practiced the residual wind leg taught by my master, it stirred the heavens, the earth trembled, it was so formidable it could startle both heaven and earth and make demons weep. Since you heard the noise, why didn't you come out and witness my might?" Meng Lang certainly wouldn't admit his embarrassing moment, and he huffed, "Your leg technique might be fierce, but without spiritual power support, how could it stir up last night's strong winds? Moreover, it wasn't just strong wind last night, there was also a fluctuation of spiritual energy. Either a demon was absorbing nature's spiritual energy or a great cultivator was breaking through." Guan let out a chuckle and kicked Meng Lang in the rear. "You dare to kick me, rebelling, are you? With Li Yi gone, do you no longer acknowledge me as your elder brother?" Meng Lang exclaimed. "If I recognized you as an elder brother, wouldn't I have to stick with you here for life? Don't you want to become an outer disciple?" "Fair point, you're right about that, I'm different from you." The two began to play and tease each other. An ancient hour later, Zhang Chunkaihu found Guan and led him around Medicine Valley, explaining in detail every inch of land and herb within the valley. Guan listened attentively, but as he listened, he began to feel something was amiss. Was this like handing over one's last will and testament? Could the commotion last night have scared him out of his wits? Guan had wanted to persuade him, but then he thought that Zhu Moyan was no good person. He probably did a lot of dirty work for the demon of greed behind him. Once Chu Jingfeng resolved the matter, Zhang Chunkaihu would likely get implicated. After all, they were good friends. It was better for him to descend the mountain sooner. Guan swore he wasn't angling for the position of head disciple, he was genuinely considering Zhang Chunkaihu's well-being. Having mastered the divine wood pure yang skill, Guan was not in a rush to contact Chu Jingfeng. Firstly, he now had the power to protect himself, and secondly, he didn't want to startle the enemy. His return to Medicine Valley was so recent, and Chu Jingfeng's arrival the next day would be hard to dissociate from suspicion. Guan was not wary of Zhu Moyan but the person behind him. According to what Zhang Chunkaihu had previously mentioned, that person held a high position, and the entire Medicine Valley combined couldn't shake them. It was just as well to improve his cultivation level while waiting. After an ancient hour of touring with Zhang Chunkaiyu, even climbing the surrounding mountains and speaking until he was parched and exhausted, he then took Guan to find Cheng Suandan. Guan saw the pill furnace in front of Cheng Suandan and his eyes were filled with curiosity. He had long heard that Cheng Suandan was skilled in alchemy, he wondered if he could learn it too. Once he learned it and invested his lifespan, he could transform directly into an alchemy grandmaster. Cheng Suandan rose and looked at Guan, saying, "From now on, you are the eldest disciple of this Medicine Valley." Upon hearing this, Guan was shocked and looked instinctively at Zhang Chunkaiyu, asking in a flurry, "Eldest disciple, what's wrong with you?" Chapter 9 The Life of a Great Disciple. Looking at Guan, who was worried for him, Zhang Chunkaiyu felt extremely gratified. What he found hardest to part with upon his departure from the mountain wasn't his master, but his junior brother Guan. He was too obedient, too honest. Zhang Chunkaiyu shared the same concerns as Li Yi, worried that Guan would be bullied in the future. "I've been in Medicine Valley for 40 years, it's time for me to descend the mountain. My aptitude for immortal cultivation is mediocre, and there's no hope for me to achieve foundation establishment in this lifetime. Instead of wasting away here, I might as well enjoy the rest of my days. Junior brother Gu, you take over the position of the eldest brother. Meng Lang, that kid loves to slack off, he can't take on the role of eldest brother," Zhang Chunkaiyu said seriously, patting Guan on the shoulder. Guan hesitated, "But without you, eldest brother, I'm afraid I..." Cheng Suandan spoke up, "If you don't dare, let Meng. I'm not incapable." Guan quickly interrupted. Zhang Chunkaiyu, who had intended to comfort him, was stunned. Cheng Suandan looked deeply at Guan and said no more. Guan cleared his throat and said, "I can't let eldest brother's intention go to waste. All right, actually I'm afraid if Meng Lang becomes the eldest brother, he'll order me around every day." Hearing what he said afterwards, Zhang Chunkaiyu couldn't help but laugh out loud. The atmosphere relaxed instantly, and Zhang Chunkaiyu began to encourage Guan, who listened intently. After chatting for a while, Zhang Chunkaiyu gathered his robes and kowtowed to Cheng Suandan, leaving Guan alone with Cheng Suandan after 3 loud kowtows and rising to his feet. "You see, nobody wants to stay in Medicine Valley forever. If you don't want to spend your life here, you can speak up earlier. Your master may well be able to help you," Cheng Suandan said calmly. Guan hurriedly replied, "Disciple wishes to stay in Medicine Valley for a lifetime. Don't rush your answer, because it really might be for a lifetime. Master, your disciple dares not lie. I truly wish to stay here for a lifetime. Perhaps in others' eyes, the work in Medicine Valley seems dirty and tiresome, but for me, these are the most comfortable days. Master takes good care of me, and the brothers are also very kind to me. I truly am willing to stay here for a lifetime," Guan said earnestly, needing to express his true feelings at this juncture. Cheng Suandan spoke somberly, "You must have a background. The fact that you survived the demon of greed is no coincidence, and the surge of nature's spiritual energy yesterday also came from the direction of your courtyard." Guan grew anxious, "Master, I really don't have a background. The only background I might have is Ji Xiao of the Ji family, but I'm just her house servant." "The Ji family?" Cheng Suandan glared with shock, the first time Guan had seen such a change come over him. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. On his master's face, Guan saw dread, anger, and fear mixing into a ghastly and terrifying visage. Damn it! This old man wouldn't have a grudge against the Ji family, would he? Feeling uneasy, Guan thought he had gone too far. "So that's how it is. From now on, you are the leading disciple of this portion of Medicine Valley," Cheng Suandan said, taking a deep breath. What a turn of events! Guan breathed a sigh of relief. Regardless of whether Cheng Suandan was sincere or not, he would take the role of the leading disciple first. Even if Cheng Suandan had malicious intentions, he wouldn't live much longer. Guan was not afraid of Cheng Suandan plotting against him. Could Cheng Suandan take a beating as well as the demon of greed? Disciple will diligently fulfill your expectations, Guan hurriedly promised. Cheng Suandan waved his hand, go call Meng Lang and Xiao Chuan here. Upon hearing this, Guan promptly bowed and then turned to leave. 30 minutes later, Guan, Meng Lang, and Xiao Chuan came down from the attic, with Xiao Chuan extremely excited, repeatedly addressing him as eldest brother. Meng Lang, on the other hand, was discontented, exclaiming angrily, how did you become the eldest brother? Why not me? My cultivation level is higher than yours, and my background is superior. Guan didn't get angry at his words and turned to smile, Meng Lang, being the eldest brother is no easy task, once you take on the role, it's for a lifetime. Master noticed that you have the heart for immortal cultivation, so he let me take the position. Really? Meng Lang's anger subsided. Of course. Look at our eldest brother, he's been here for 40 years. How many 40 years does one have in life? N/O/vel/b//jn. .c//om. Meng Lang fell silent, his gaze changed, filled with sympathy as he looked at Guan. He patted Guan on the shoulder and said, Guan, you've been wronged. Xiao Chuan also grew quiet. He too harbored dreams of immortal cultivation and naturally did not want to spend his life there. Guan pretended to be pensive while inwardly laughing. Meng Lang was indeed easy to fool. And so, the life of Guan as the leading disciple began. Cheng Suandan assigned him to oversee all affairs of Medicine Valley, so he handed over planting and farming tasks to Xiao Chuan and Meng Lang, and only took care of the harvesting himself. Meng Lang, possibly feeling guilty, didn't complain. Since harvesting was a rare task, coming around once every month, Guan spent most of his time cultivating in secret, never letting anyone perceive his true cultivation level. 3 months had passed. In secrecy, Guan reached the 5th layer of the energy cultivation realm. The mastery of divine wood pure yang skill was truly formidable. Guan hadn't cultivated as long as Meng Lang, and he made sure to leave time for reading. The autumn leaves blanketed Medicine Valley, and the surrounding mountains also took on autumn hues, spreading a sense of melancholy in the mortal world. Guan stood in front of the wooden railing, watching the 3rd stage medicinal herbs that were about to ripen, fondling the white spirit rat in his hand. Suddenly hearing something, he turned his head, only to see Cheng Suandan approaching from the valley entrance, followed by 2 people, a boy and a girl, both looking around 14 or 15 years old. He subconsciously used lifespan detection. Yelan, Energy Cultivation Realm 1st Layer 14/110/130. Lu Jujia, Energy Cultivation Realm 2nd Layer 15/140/190. Excellent. 2 more had arrived to serve. Guan's corners of his mouth turned up, and he immediately walked briskly towards Cheng Suandan. He came before Cheng Suandan and clasped his fists in a salute. Lu Jujia and Yelan couldn't help but look at Guan curiously. Guan was handsome, and with the cultivation of dragon strength divine primordial skill and divine wood pure yang skill, he exuded an exceptional temperament which reminded them of cultivators from the supreme sect they had met before. Honor, these 2 are your junior brother and sister. You take them to settle in, Cheng Suandan said before leaving. Honor? Guan almost got goosebumps, but he still saluted Cheng Suandan's retreating figure. He turned to look at Lu Jujia and Yelan, they both hastened to salute him respectfully, which pleased him greatly. Nice. They were more polite than Liya and Meng Lang, those 2 had no etiquette towards Zhang Chunkaihu back in the day. Guan felt an instant liking for his junior brother and sister. He began with introducing himself and asked them to do the same. Lu Jujia had dark skin and wore tattered clothes, like a young farm boy. However, his eyes were bright and spirited. Yelan was thin and petite but dressed richly, and her features were only considered fair. Let's go, "I, your senior brother, will take you to your lodgings," said Guan with a smile, his gentle attitude easing their nervousness. On the way to the disciples' courtyard, Yelan couldn't contain her curiosity about the other disciples within Medicine Valley. Guan introduced them truthfully. After that, he called over Meng Lang and Xiao Chuan and made the four of them meet each other. Unlike Zhang Chunkaiu, Guan genuinely wanted to improve relationships among fellow sect members. After all, he was to be the Valley Master. The addition of Yelan and Lu Jijia to the fold reminded Guan of Zhu Moyan and the Demon of Greed. No good. He needed to resolve this issue soon, lest his junior brothers and sisters encounter danger. Guan, with this matter weighing on his mind, began instructing his junior brothers and sisters on how to go about their tasks. That evening, he closed his room door, took out Chu Jingfeng's spirit stone, and channeled a sliver of spiritual power into it, causing the spirit stone to become hot. This was Guan's first time using such a device from the world of immortal cultivation, and he found it very novel. After a few breaths, Chu Jingfeng's voice came from within, "Who is this? Wow, how many people have you given such a spirit stone to?" Guan forcefully suppressed the urge to complain and said, "Senior, it is Guan from Medicine Valley." Chu Jingfeng fell silent. Guan sensed a trace of awkwardness, but thankfully Chu Jingfeng soon asked, "Do you have information on the Demon of Greed?" "Yes," Guan declared with conviction, and then recounted what he had seen and heard. After he finished, Chu Jingfeng inquired seriously, "Is it true?" "True, without a shred of falsehood. He's not far from our Medicine Valley. I fear he might harm us," Guan seriously stated. "All right, I will take full responsibility for this matter. I will look for his cave location in the outer sect and won't trouble you further. Thank you for understanding, Senior. If this matter is resolved smoothly, I also hope that Senior will not mention me. I am of mediocre talent and seek no trouble, just a peaceful life." "I'll handle it properly." After saying this, Chu Jingfeng cut off the spirit stone connection. Guan placed the spirit stone on the table and carefully revisited his interactions with Chu Jingfeng and Zhu Moyan, confirming there were no slip-ups. What a hassle! I hope this issue resolves smoothly. I just want to farm in peace. Guan thought to himself that, compared to fighting and killing, he much preferred the tranquil life of gathering herbs. After signaling Chu Jingfeng, Guan patrolled every day, keeping a close eye on his junior brothers and sisters, fearing they might venture out of Medicine Valley. 3 days passed without incident. It was not until the deep of the 4th night that Guan sensed a disturbance of spiritual energy outside of Medicine Valley and faintly heard the sounds of weapons clashing. A fight has broken out. He stealthily moved out, making his way to the mouth of the valley. He wanted to stand guard there to prevent the Demon of Greed or any other evildoers from sneaking into Medicine Valley and attacking his junior brothers and sisters. The distant battle was fierce, and by the time Guan reached the valley mouth, it wasn't over yet. The numerous mountain peaks along the way made it impossible for Guan to visually assess the fight, so he relied on his keen hearing to gauge the situation. Suddenly, Guan seemed to sense something, quickly turned around, and looked back at Medicine Valley. His gaze fell upon a pagoda where he saw Cheng Suandan standing by a window, watching him from afar. The bright moonlight bathed the dark pagoda, and Cheng Suandan appeared like a ghost, sending shivers down Guan's spine. "Oh no! He's caught me!" Guan frowned, suddenly unsure of what to do. Just as he hesitated, Cheng Suandan slowly closed the window, but his gaze lingered like 2 chilling beams that deeply unsettled Guan. Guan wasn't afraid of Cheng Suandan himself, but he dreaded the possibility that Cheng Suandan might let his secret slip. Yet upon further thought, he figured it was unlikely. If Cheng Suandan were really in cahoots with the great cultivator behind the Demon of Greed, why bother to summon Chu Jingfeng for protection? It would be superfluous. If they, as mere servant disciples, were killed, the other party wouldn't even need to fabricate a reason to report back to the sect. Chapter 10 Alchemy, 1 Jade 1 Promise. Guan tried not to dwell on Cheng Xuandan's intentions, instead, he focused his attention outside the valley to prevent enemy attacks. He stood guard the entire night. As dawn was about to break, Guan quietly returned to his room. Guan wanted to go to the battlefield to take a look but feared traps, so he could only hold back. The addition of Yelan and Lu Jijia brought more vitality to Medicine Valley, dragging Xiao Chuan all over the valley as they ran. They were in the prime of youth, brimming with energy, and even the normally silent and reticent Xiao Chuan became lively because of them. Guan leaned against the wooden railing of a garden area, holding a copy of Green Hero Travelogue, enjoying the caress of the autumn wind. His gaze occasionally swept towards Cheng Xuandan's attic. The face-off from last night lingered in his mind, and he really wanted to talk to Cheng Xuandan but feared disrupting the delicate balance. Just then, Lu Jijia approached Guan, his face full of anticipation as he asked, "Senior brother, I heard from Senior brother Meng that you are proficient in a sophisticated leg technique. Could you teach me? I am willing to take over all your harvesting tasks." Guan looked at him and smiled, "I wouldn't say proficient. If you want to learn, I can certainly teach you. As for the harvesting, let's leave it to Senior brother. I should do some work, and besides, I enjoy harvesting." Upon hearing this, Lu Jijia's respect for Guan grew even more. Senior brother is truly a good person. He was extremely excited. Guan tucked the book he was holding into his bosom and then began teaching Lu Jijia the residual wind leg technique. It wasn't long before Xiao Chuan and Yelan also ran over to learn, but as for Meng Lang, he was too proud to admit interest and felt that Guan was not stronger than him. The reason he spoke of Guan's leg technique was merely to avoid Lu Jijia's pestering. The residual wind leg technique was fierce, and even with Guan holding back, it was still dazzling to the three youths. An hour later, as Guan was thinking of an excuse to slip away, a voice came from afar. "Anar, come here." Guan turned his head to look and saw Cheng Xuandan standing by the window, gesturing to him. "Here it comes." Guan immediately walked towards Cheng Xuandan's attic, while Xiao Chuan and the others did not think much of it and continued practicing the residual wind leg technique. N/O/vel/b/jn.c//om. He made his way into Cheng Xuandan's room, closed the door behind him, and quickly approached Cheng Xuandan, bowing in greeting. Cheng Xuandan was seated in meditation in front of the pill furnace. He pointed to the other side of the furnace and said, "Sit." Guan went to the indicated spot, sat down cross-legged, and meanwhile prepared his words carefully in his mind. "Have you looked for Chu Jingfeng?" The first sentence from Cheng Xuandan interrupted Guan's thoughts. "There we go, right to the point." Guan didn't beat around the bush and replied, "Yes, he approached me before saying that if there was any clue about the demon of greed, to contact him at any time. Senior brother Zhang suggested I manage the cave of an outer disciple named Zhu Moyan. When Zhu Moyan returned, I went to hand over the cave and saw the demon of greed he had hidden behind the vines. His cave is too close to us, I had to find Chu Jingfeng." Cheng Xuandan nodded and said, "You did right. This matter indeed had to be left to Chu Jingfeng. Chu Jingfeng is no ordinary person. Besides being exceptionally talented, he also has a notable background. That's why he can become an inner sect disciple with the Foundation Establishment Realm Cultivation. A significant background? No wonder he dares to investigate the demon of greed." Guan felt reassured in his heart, also worried that if Chu Jingfeng failed, the great cultivator behind the demon of greed might trace back to him. Chu Jingfeng has been investigating the demon of greed, so he took on our Medicine Valley's task. It's part of a power play between his father and a certain eminent figure within the sect. Still, I am quite puzzled. It's been several months since you returned from Zhu Moyan's place, why did you only contact Chu Jingfeng recently? Cheng Xuandan stared at Guan and questioned. Guan said helplessly, "Master, you should understand me. I dislike trouble and don't wish to conflict with others. No matter what Meng Lang tried to command me to do, I couldn't be bothered to argue, so originally, I intended to pretend I didn't see anything. But since Master has brought junior brothers and sisters to Medicine Valley, I had no choice but to contact Chu Jingfeng." This was a sincere confession. Indeed, these were his reasons. Cheng Xuandan gave him a deep look, then glanced at the pill furnace beside him, and said, "You've done well. From now on, you are my true disciple. I will pass on everything I know to you. As for this matter, let's both forget it. Neither Chu Jingfeng's father nor the eminent figure behind the demon of greed is someone we can afford to provoke." Upon hearing this, Guan was stunned. He looked at Cheng Xuandan's profile and suddenly felt he had misunderstood his master. "Master!" Guan immediately stood up and bowed to Cheng Xuandan, with great formality. Cheng Xuandan looked back at him, showing a gentle expression that was like a different person from his usual self. "In the future, if there's anything you want to understand or learn, you can always come to your master. Don't feel like you're bothering me. I don't have many years left, and there aren't many days for me to teach you." Cheng Xuandan's eyes and tone were softer than they ever had been before. Guan sat down, his voice cautious, "Master, can you concoct the youth-preserving pill?" A staple for the protagonist of any immortal cultivation story is starting with a youth-preserving pill for eternal youth. Guan didn't want to end up as an old man with white hair. Cheng Xuandan shook his head with a smile, then raised his hand, and with a movement through the air, a jade bottle appeared in his hand. He poured out one pill and handed it to Guan. Guan did not hesitate and swallowed it directly. The reason he was so bold was that the Divine Wood Pure Yang skill and the Dragon Strength Divine Primordial skill both had detoxifying effects, and describing his current state as immune to all poisons was by no means an exaggeration. Seeing Guan had no guard against him, a look of gratification appeared in Cheng Xuandan's eyes. After taking the youth-preserving pill, Guan felt nothing out of the ordinary, as if he had just consumed a piece of ice candy that melted in his mouth. "Do you have any interest in alchemy?" Cheng Xuandan asked. Guan's eyes lit up, and he nodded eagerly, "Not hiding anything from you, Master, I have actually wanted to learn alchemy from you for a while, but I was too shy to say anything before." Cheng Xuandan pinched his beard and laughed heartily, his laughter filled with genuine warmth. The atmosphere inside the room became very harmonious, and Cheng Xuandan began to teach the art of alchemy, starting from igniting the fire in the pill furnace. Guan, who had learned the fire control art, picked it up quickly, leading Cheng Xuandan to mistakenly believe he possessed a natural talent for alchemy. However, once Cheng Xuandan's lecture moved beyond managing the fire, Guan started to get confused, which rendered Cheng Xuandan silent for a while. After Guan and Cheng Xuandan established a true mentor-disciple relationship, Medicine Valley became livelier. Cheng Xuandan, who usually stayed shut inside his room, began to come out more often, casually giving pointers to Guan and the others on how to cultivate medicinal herbs. Liu Jijia and Yelan grew increasingly fond of Cheng Xuandan, often praising how amiable and approachable their master was, much to Meng Lang's scorn. Since that night's great battle, there had been no more sounds of fighting outside the valley. Chu Jingfeng and Zhu Moyan never came to Medicine Valley, and Guan didn't dare to inquire into the situation, only able to keep the matter hidden deep within his heart. Time flew by swiftly. A year passed in a blink of an eye. Guan crossed the threshold of 20 and his lifespan increased to over 2,800 years once again. One day at noon, Guan was lying on a cliff halfway up the mountain, reading a book. Below was Medicine Valley, where he could see the figures of Xiao Chuan and Liu Jijia practicing their leg techniques. Ever since the word alchemy appeared on Guan's attribute panel, he stopped pestering Cheng Xuandan. Learning the process of alchemy was truly too dull. It is worth mentioning that, at Guan's suggestion, Cheng Xuandan exchanged more seeds from the outer sect. Needless to say, Cheng Su and Dan was very competent after they truly became master and disciple. Guan propped his head with his left hand and held the book in his right, exhaling a breath of air to flip the pages. His eyes suddenly widened, and he sat up immediately. The latest edition of Green Hero Travelogue actually included illustrations. There was something special about it. Guan carefully admired the pictures in the book, his mouth constantly critiquing as he went along. A loud screech descended from the sky, and he looked up sharply, his gaze becoming piercing. A white eagle with a wingspan of about 10 feet landed. When it was nearly 2 yards away from Guan, it loosened its talons, and a letter fell, which he caught effortlessly. The white eagle drew a perfect arc in the sky, swiftly disappearing beyond the other side of the mountain. What a majestic eagle! Guan couldn't help but think of his white spirit rat, tiny as a palm, and utterly useless. He opened the envelope and found not only a letter but also a jade pendant inside, engraved with the character Chu. He tucked the jade pendant into his belt and pocketed the Green Hero Travelogue before examining the letter. The letter was surprisingly from Chu Jingfeng. Chu Jingfeng first gave a brief account of the battle from before, revealing that Zhu Moyan had died by his sword. Over the past year, he had gathered evidence all around and brought down the great cultivator manipulating the demon of greed, assuring Guan that he needn't worry about the issue anymore. The jade pendant was a token from the Chu family. If Guan encountered problems he couldn't resolve, he could use it to seek out Chu Jingfeng or his clansmen. The Chu family honors the jade, not the person. A promise for a jade. Guan's regard for Chu Jingfeng rose greatly. He hadn't expected such an aloof inner-sect disciple to value loyalty so much. Even if Chu Jingfeng gave him nothing in return, he couldn't do anything about it. Moreover, he had previously said that there was no need for Chu Jingfeng to contact him anymore. After reading, Guan tore the letter into pieces, then scattered them on the ground. With a slight twist of his right foot, the spiritual power beneath vibrated, turning the paper fragments into fine dust. The spiritual power of the 8th layer in the energy cultivation realm was just that strong. Guan's mouth curved in a smile, and he leaped into the air like a wild goose flying swiftly away. Along the way, his toes lightly touched the leaves in the hillside woods, landing gracefully at the end of his path. To this, Liu Jijia and Xiao Chuan had already grown accustomed. Guan kept his aura at the level of the 2nd layer of the energy cultivation realm, and he had already showcased his residual wind leg, earning high praise from Cheng Su and Dan. Now, he was like a formidable master of the martial arts world. Guan was low-key in his actions, but he felt he couldn't always hide away. Revealing some of his strength appropriately would help him live a better farming life. As soon as he landed, the white spirit rat scurried over and climbed up his leg to his shoulder. I haven't checked your leg techniques for several days. Come on, let's spar. The two of you together, Guan said to Xiao Chuan and the others with a smile. Xiao Chuan and Liu Jijia exchanged glances and immediately charged at Guan. The three of them fought with their leg techniques on the grass outside the garden, moving deftly with their long legs whipping through the air. For a moment, the breeze whooshed, and grass clippings flew about. Guan faced two opponents alone, dismantling Xiao Chuan and the others' techniques with a single leg. Xiaoquan's techniques appeared well-shaped but slightly clumsy. Liu Jijia showed high talent, his kicks already carrying the momentum of the residual wind leg, but every move was slower than Guan. After half a sensor of time, Xiao Chuan and Liu Jijia were panting heavily, and after exchanging a look, they conceded defeat in unison. Guan slowly retracted his leg, which had been suspended in the air, and said with a smile, "You've improved a lot, which made it quite challenging for your senior brother. I estimate it won't be long before you surpass me." "How long is not long?" Xiao Chuan asked bluntly. Guan patted the dust off his trousers and said with a smile, "That depends on how hard you practice." The white spirit rat perched on his shoulder, squeaking as if laughing. Chapter 11, Chapter 11G Family Ultimate Skill. After exchanging a few words with Xiao Chuan and Liu Jijia, Guan headed towards his own courtyard, pulling out a copy of Green Hero Travelogue from his robes, preparing to thoroughly enjoy the illustrations within. As he reached the front of the courtyard, Yelan approached him. "Senior brother, I want to learn the residual wind leg too," Yelan said, puffing up with frustration. Guan naturally closed the travelogue and asked with a smile, "What's the matter? Has senior brother Meng refused to teach you spells?" Yelan grew even more annoyed and said with a sense of grievance, "Yes, he teaches in such a perfunctory manner. I got frustrated and argued with him, and then he snapped at me, saying he needs to prepare for the outer sect examination and doesn't have the time to bother with me, telling me to scram." Guan noticed her cheeks puffing up like balloons and felt amused, but he held back and didn't laugh out loud. "Since senior brother Meng is busy, let's not disturb him. How about this, tomorrow at noon, I will personally teach you the residual wind leg, how does that sound?" Guan said soothingly. Yelan looked at him in surprise and asked, "Why tomorrow? Senior brother is tired, have some sympathy. You were just being harried by your two senior brothers, you can go ask them," Guan said, pointing towards Xiao Chuan and Lu Jijia in the distance. After finishing his sentence, he walked past Yelan and headed towards his own room. Yelan noticed the book in his hand and wondered to herself, "Is Green Hero Travelogue really that interesting?" Guan closed the door of his room, lay on his bed, and picked up Green Hero Travelogue again. The reason he liked Green Hero Travelogue was that it was a series, with a new volume released every 6 months. Following a serialized book in the Immortal cultivation world gave Guan a sense of being back on Earth. He soon became immersed in the content of the book. He seriously suspected that the book was written by a cultivator from the Supreme Sect, just that he didn't know how advanced the author's cultivation level was since the book didn't include detailed battle records, only leisurely travels and romantic adventures. An hour later, Guan suddenly heard a commotion from the neighboring house. It seemed like Meng Lang was rolling on the ground, his breathing highly irregular. Did he mess up his practice? Guan hesitated whether to check on him or not, but Meng Lang soon stopped. This kid didn't even cry out in pain. As the surrounding spiritual energy flowed towards his house, Guan knew he had resumed his cultivation. Tisk tisk. Liya has already risen to prominence. Could it be that Meng Lang also had his own extraordinary encounter? Goodness, if this is the case, then the three of them joining Medicine Valley on the same day, accepting the same master, and each having great opportunities, would indeed be the stuff of legends. Guan quickly reconsidered and felt he might be overthinking it. Meng Lang would be lucky if he could die a natural death. In his view, with Meng Lang's temperament, once he left the valley, it wouldn't be long before he died. He was inept at speaking and quick to anger, hardly the demeanor of a cultivator. He stopped pondering and continued indulging in Green Hero Travelogue. Guan spent 6 ancient hours each day absorbing spiritual energy, usually using his sleeping hours for cultivation. As cultivators don't need to sleep, the process of energy absorption itself was a better form of rest and relaxation than sleep. With the remaining time, he didn't just read travelogues, he had other books too. Cheng Xuandan had already passed on to him the 100 Herbs collection, a manual produced by the Supreme Sect that documented various spirit flowers and grasses around the world, with specific medicinal properties noted by Cheng Xuandan. Though Cheng Xuandan's cultivation level was low, having lived for a century, he indeed possessed extensive knowledge and broad experience. People with poor qualifications have this advantage: they can spend more time accumulating knowledge and experiences. Another year passed, and winter snow arrived. Flurries of large snowflakes blanketed the garden, and Guan was directing his junior brothers and sisters in clearing it. As for Meng Lang, that guy had become obsessed with his training, hiding in his room all day to practice, and now, Guan couldn't get him to do anything. Cheng Xuandan said to just let him be. Every edge of the garden had special talisman papers that could generate heat, but these papers had a time limit. Once they expired, it would only take an hour for the snow to blanket the entire garden again. Watching Xiao Chuan, Lu Jijia and Yelan bustling about, Gu An's mind wandered. He was increasingly dissatisfied with the production of Medicine Valley and felt it was essential to clear new land. Once this winter was over, he planned to have them go up the mountain to cut trees and cultivate the soil. Suddenly, a sound of breaking air came from afar. Gu An turned to look and saw a man in plain clothes riding a flying sword, cutting through the snowy sky, resembling a sword immortal. Du Ye. Gu An instinctively sent out a lifespan detection toward him, discovering that his cultivation had reached the 6th layer of the Qi cultivation realm. Such a rapid breakthrough! The arrival of Du Ye also caught the attention of Xiao Chuan and the others. As Du Ye flew close to where Gu An was and then leaped off, skillfully stowing his sword into its sheath at his waist, his movements as smooth as flowing water, Xiao Chuan and the others stared in awe. They had joined the supreme sect not to do menial work but to cultivate immortality, a dream hindered by their mediocre spirit root qualifications. They had joined Medicine Valley while waiting for a chance. Du Ye sized up Gu An, clapped him on the shoulders and said with a laugh, "Not bad, you've fully grown up, no longer the little kid who used to follow me around." Gu An exchanged pleasantries with Du Ye while inwardly swearing. "We're all house servants, what's with the pretense?" After several detours, Du Ye finally brought up the main topic. He whispered, "How are the medicinal herbs coming along? Come with me to retrieve them." Gu An nodded with a smile. He indeed had some herbs stored away, rightfully his as the top disciple of Medicine Valley, and he planned to give them all to Du Ye. Although he could steal lifespan, that stuff required time. Before achieving absolute invincibility, he had to foster good relations with the Ji family, as they might prove useful in the future. Although the Chu family was strong, their influence was only within the supreme sect. The Ji family, however, was different. They were a top-tier family within the entire Taikang dynasty. The Ji family where Gu An previously stayed was just a branch in one city, but descendants of the Ji family could be found in all immortal cultivation sects throughout the dynasty. Along the way, Du Ye began to talk about the outer sect. "Li Ye is from your Medicine Valley, isn't he? Recently, he has been quite the topic of conversation. He is a descendant of the Taikang imperial family and is currently competing with his imperial brother. The two have even made a life and death duel pact, causing quite a stir. It is said that Li Ye was considered a waste just a few years ago. By some stroke of luck, his cultivation level improved by leaps and bounds. Now, he has already reached the 2nd layer of the foundation establishment realm." Hearing Du Ye mention Li Ye piqued Gu An's interest. Why does Li Ye sound like a bitter and vengeful protagonist from a fantasy novel? Curiously, Gu An asked, "Must one reach the foundation establishment realm to become an outer disciple?" Du Ye nodded and said, "Naturally, like me, my cultivation level is insufficient. Although I am in the outer sect, I still belong to the servants, but staying in the outer city allows me to be involved in these matters. Reaching the foundation establishment realm directly promotes one to an outer disciple, and reaching the core formation realm advances one to an inner sect disciple. Above the inner sect disciples are the inheriting disciples and true disciples. These are the explicit rules. If one's talent is exceptional, they can also break these rules. Our third miss is such a person. From the moment she joined, she was an inheriting disciple, and she is now thinking about breaking through to become a true disciple. To become a true disciple, relying solely on cultivation level is not enough, one must also be able to command respect and possess sufficient prestige. That's why I need to pave the way for her." When Du Ye mentioned Ji Xiaoyu, he spoke incessantly. For the first time, Gu An did not mind his verbosity and listened attentively. As they entered the house, Gu An listened while taking out the bundle he had prepared earlier. Du Ye spoke for a while before finally stopping. He raised his hand slightly, dissatisfied. He said, "Is that all?" Gu An replied with a smile, "The future is long, after all. Immortal cultivation is not a matter of 1 or 2 years. Instead of overstepping my bounds and risking being banished from the valley, it's better for me to stay compliant, providing herbs all year round. I won't keep a single plant to myself, all will be offered up." Hearing this, Du Yi's expression softened. He asked again, "Really? Really, with my qualifications, what do I need herbs for? Living a peaceful life is my pursuit," Guan responded affirmatively. Du Yi opened his mouth but eventually sighed. His right hand reached for his storage bag, from which he took out a manual and handed it to Guan. Guan took it and saw it was titled 8 Directions Step. This surprised him. Had the guy had a change of heart? Du Yi explained, "This is a stepping technique from the Ji family. It's only the basic step of Ji family's ultimate skill, Kailan step, but if you learn it, you might move faster, which could help you escape trouble someday. This technique does not depend on spirit root qualification, as long as you practice, you can always learn it." Guan began to see Du Yi in a new light and was about to say something when Du Yi grabbed the bundle, patted his shoulder, and walked past him. Guan turned around, following his steps, and saw him off. Reaching the courtyard, Du Yi turned back to him and said, "After all, we have grown up together. Even if our paths diverge later due to different choices, our friendship remains. If life treats you poorly, you can always come to me." With these words, his left hand slapped the scabbard, and with a metallic ring, the sword was drawn. He leaped up and rode away on the sword. N/O/vel/B//in.C//om. Such an impressive sword control technique. Guan lowered his gaze to the manual in his hands, his lips curving upwards. He began to browse through the 8 Directions step and started practicing it in the courtyard. A Ji family ultimate skill? He wondered if, by using his lifespan to cultivate, he could evolve and deduce that Ji family's ultimate skill. When Xiao Chuan and the other two finished cleaning all the sectors, they quickly came to Guan's courtyard, curiously watching him practice the stepping technique. "Senior brother, what cultivation technique are you practicing?" Yelan asked curiously. Guan, shifting his stance, asked with a smile, "Do you want to learn?" "Yes." The three responded in unison. Guan replied, "Wait until I learn it, then I will teach you." Bang! The door of the house next door burst open, and Meng Lang, whose eyes were covered with bloodshot veins and forehead full of blood-colored veins, emerged, looking terrifying. Xiao Chuan, Lu Jijia, and Yelan were all scared. Meng Lang charged towards the nearest Yelan like a crazed beast, his aura ferocious. Yelan was terrified and couldn't react quickly enough. In less than a moment, Meng Lang was about to collide with Yelan. Guan grasped Yelan's shoulders and pulled him back, while his right foot simultaneously stepped on Meng Lang's chest. Boom! Meng Lang's momentum exploded, his aura whirling around him, and his feet scraped long marks on the ground. Guan's right leg slowly straightened, pushing Meng Lang backward. Xiao Chuan and the others widened their eyes, Guan's posture deeply imprinting in their minds, leaving them in awe. Is senior brother this powerful? Although Guan usually managed to win over them in sparring without using spiritual power, Xiao Chuan and Lu Jijia always believed they would eventually surpass their senior brother. Suddenly, Meng Lang grabbed Guan's right foot with both hands, a brutal force attempting to break his leg. Guan leapt up sharply, then forcefully stomped down, pressing Meng Lang into the ground with a thud, forcing him to kneel. Meng Lang's knees sank into the soil, his body trembling, unable to push Guan's foot off, looking extremely wretched. Chapter 12 Foundation Establishment, Nighttime Turbulence. Watching Guan suppress Meng Lang with a single leg, Xiao Chuan, Lu Jijia, and Yelan were extremely excited. On normal days, Meng Lang always boasted that he was the strongest in Medicine Valley. Who would have thought that today, in his loss of control, he would be made to kneel by a single leg from his eldest senior brother. No wonder the eldest senior brother isn't Meng Lang. The master has a discerning eye. Guan gazed down at Meng Lang, who was kneeling before him, and spoke, "Haven't you come to your senses yet?" His spiritual power flowed through his right leg into Meng Lang's body, forcibly smoothing out the chaotic spiritual power within him. Meng Lang's breathing stabilized, the bloodshot in his eyes began to fade, and his ferocious expression gradually returned to normal. Seeing that he had awakened, Guan slowly retracted his leg, then helped him up. Meng Lang suddenly came to his senses, looking up at Guan while breathing heavily. "Guan! What just happened to me?" Meng Lang asked with difficulty, the violent fluctuations of qi blood in his body making speaking quite strenuous. Guan replied, "It seemed like you experienced a cultivation deviation." Upon hearing this, Meng Lang's eyes widened in shock and he asked, "I didn't harm you, did I?" Xiao Chuan and Lu Jijia's expressions instantly became peculiar. Yalan subconsciously wanted to answer, but Guan hastily interjected, "It's fine, you managed to restrain yourself at the critical moment." Meng Lang let out a sigh of relief, forcing a cheerful smile he said, "That's right, after all, I am the true eldest senior brother. How could I harm you?" Yalan, on the other hand, looked at Guan with eyes full of admiration. The eldest senior brother is not only powerful but also very gentle. Xiao Chuan and Lu Jijia shared the same thoughts, while feeling contempt for Meng Lang. Talk is cheap, just a moment ago he was like a ghost. Guan told Xiao Chuan and the others to disperse, then helped Meng Lang back to his room. "What kind of cultivation technique are you practicing? It's too shady, isn't it?" Guan asked, although he had a poor opinion of Meng Lang. After all, they had spent day and night together, and if possible, he still hoped Meng Lang would be safe and sound. Meng Lang chuckled and said, "Of course, it's a divine skill, it's just that my talents and comprehension aren't enough, making it easy to go astray. But there's no helping it, I must become an outer disciple." Confused, Guan asked, "Why must you become an outer disciple when you didn't seem to care before?" Meng Lang's complexion instantly darkened, and he fell into silence. Seeing that he did not want to speak, Guan did not press further. After helping him to bed, Guan then turned and left. This incident was but a minor episode for Guan, he couldn't control others' fates. Everyone had their own aspirations, and if one perished on the immortal cultivation path, it wouldn't be considered a pity. Arriving in the courtyard, Guan continued to practice the 8 trigrams step. Winter passed and spring arrived, another year of fine scenery. In the early morning, when Medicine Valley still held remnants of snow, Guan took his junior brothers and sisters up the mountain. Felling trees and pulling out roots is also a form of cultivation. You can use your spiritual power to do it. Once your spiritual power is depleted, you can cultivate to replenish, which will aid in improving your cultivation level. Dressed in green, Guan stood in the forest, smiling softly. He had his hands clasped behind his back, exuding the demeanor of a master. That day, with a single leg, he had subdued Meng Lang, who went into cultivation deviation, successfully establishing himself as a dominant figure in the eyes of his junior brothers and sisters. Guan even felt the younger junior sister developing different thoughts about him, increasingly clinging to him. Fortunately, he guided Yalan in her cultivation timely, diverting her attention. How could one speak of affection in immortal cultivation? In this life, Guan did not wish to fall into the whirlpool of emotions too early, such would lead to losing his way. Xiao Chuan turned and asked, "Eldest senior brother, do we use our hands, or do we use our legs?" Guan maintained his smile and said, "However is convenient for you. Cultivation is one aspect, completing the task is another. You must find the right balance." Is this how Zhang Chunkai have felt before? Talking nonsense is actually quite enjoyable. Junior brother Xiao Chuan, let's see who can do it faster. Lu Jijia said, rubbing his hands in anticipation. Xiao Chuan readily agreed, and Yalan also clamored to join, only to be ignored by the two who did not enjoy competing with a girl. So Guan watched them pulling up trees while simultaneously planning out a new garden area. What medicinal herbs should be planted in this mountain? Guan got lost in thought. Although Xiao Chuan and the others were cultivators, their cultivation levels were not high. It took them an entire half a day just to clear a piece of land. Guan brought soul-shaking grass seeds, a third-grade medicinal herb, for them to plant. After finishing it all, the senior brothers went down the mountain together, chatting and laughing, as the sunset stretched their shadows long across the hillside. Guan encouraged his junior brothers and sisters to share their goals. All three aimed to enter the outer sect, each driven by different motives. Xiao Chuan simply wished to become stronger, Liu Zhijia aimed to prove himself to his family, Yalan seemed to have some unspeakable secret, speaking vaguely. Guan listened with keen interest, believing that every person should have their own story. Hearing different people's stories could enrich his own life as well. A month had passed since they planted the soul-shaking grass, and that night, the moon was sparse with stars. Guan was sitting in meditation on his bed inside his room, gazing at his attribute panel and caught in a dilemma. Name: Guan n/o/vel/b//in.c//om. Lifespan: 20/3163. Spirit root: first class wood spirit root, 4 elements decent spirit root, lifespan can be invested for evolutionary cultivation. Cultivation level: energy cultivation realm 9 layers, lifespan can be invested for evolutionary cultivation. Cultivation techniques: fire control art, unmastered, divine wood pure yang skill, mastery, dragon strength divine primordial skill, mastery, alchemy, initial insight, lifespan can be invested for evolutionary cultivation. Ultimate skills: Gale shadowless leg, integrated mastery, Li family's 7 swords, unmastered, 8 trigrams step, unmastered, lifespan can be invested for evolutionary cultivation. Should I invest my lifespan to break through the cultivation realm? Cheng Xuandan has the ability to refine foundation establishment pills. Now that she is so good to Guan, perhaps he could seek a foundation establishment pill. However, Meng Lang's anomaly made Guan wary of Cheng Xuandan once more. Meng Lang had no illustrious background. If he possessed a divine skill, he could have practiced it long ago. Why wait until Liya and Zhang Chunkaiyu had left before he began? With Guan's current senses, he could be certain that Meng Lang hadn't been in contact with any strangers in the past 2 years. At most, he was summoned by Cheng Xuandan, and Guan wouldn't eavesdrop on their conversations every time. Forget it. Better to rely on oneself than to rely on others. Play it safe. The path of immortal cultivation is fraught with dangers. A single misstep can result in utter destruction. Guan immediately invested a year of his lifespan into his cultivation level to undergo evolutionary training. Special reminder: cultivation level is actually present. The evolution process turns the abstract into the concrete, and its consumption will exceed the lifespan used in actual cultivation. You focused on energy absorption cultivation for 1 year, and due to the lack of a foundation establishment pill and opportunities, you failed to break through the foundation establishment realm. 2 lines of prompts appeared before Guan's eyes, and since he hadn't succeeded in breaking through, his cultivation level saw no improvement. Guan, unfazed, continued to invest year after year. Failure, failure, failure. After a full 9 times, his expression could no longer remain composed. Damn it! Laozi doesn't believe this anymore. Invest 100 years. Guan, with his temper flaring, directly invested 100 years of his lifespan into his cultivation level for evolutionary training. You cultivated energy absorption for 10 years, and with your great accomplishment in the Divine Wood Pure Yang skill, you forcefully attempted to break through the foundation establishment realm, but ultimately failed. You cultivated energy absorption for 20 years, and with your great accomplishment in the Divine Wood Pure Yang skill, you forcefully attempted to break through the foundation establishment realm and finally succeeded. You cultivated energy absorption for 30 years, and your cultivation level broke through to the second layer of the foundation establishment realm. You cultivated energy absorption for 50 years, and your cultivation level broke through to the third layer of the foundation establishment realm. You cultivated energy absorption for 70 years, and your cultivation level broke through to the fourth layer of the foundation establishment realm. You cultivated energy absorption for 100 years, and your cultivation level broke through to the fifth layer of the foundation establishment realm. Rows of prompts crazily flashed before Guan's eyes. He had no time to rejoice when he sensed something was amiss. The breakthrough through so many levels would surely cause an enormous commotion, wouldn't it? No sooner had this thought crossed his mind than his body started to overheat, the divine wood pure yang skill automatically circulated, and he quickly stood up and leaped out of the open window. His steps were incredibly fast, silent and swift, and in less than 3 breaths' time, he dashed into the forest. With his feet kicking against the mountain wall, he climbed rapidly to the peak like an agile monkey. By this time, nature's spiritual energy was already surging toward him. He leaped, plunging into the dim forest, his right foot landing on a branch to gain momentum. After several jumps, he landed smoothly on the ground. Spiritual energy madly flooded into him, creating a whirlwind around him. The speed at which he absorbed spiritual energy grew faster and faster, causing him to feel secretly alarmed. Fortunately, he had reacted quickly. If the breakthrough had happened in Medicine Valley, it would have certainly disturbed others. Cheng Xuandan and Meng Lang might not dare to come out, but Xiao Chuan and Lu Jijia, 2 hot-headed fools, would definitely do so. While Guan thought this, he surged forward quickly, as nimble as a spirit fox. Under the cover of night, the forest rustled with the sound of swaying leaves. Leveraging the gale shadowless leg, Guan's running speed was extremely fast as he traversed the range of mountains. He was getting farther and farther from Medicine Valley. He had not yet stopped when his cultivation realm began to break through, with spiritual energy violently surging into his energy channels, also inducing his Danshan to evolve. So painful! Guan frowned, but his pace did not slow down. He ran wildly for more than 10 miles, and eventually, he stopped in a stand of trees, sitting down beneath one to cultivate energy. While cultivating, he marveled to himself. He hadn't expected 100 years of lifespan to allow him to break through from the 9th layer of the energy cultivation realm to the 5th layer of the foundation establishment realm. It seemed the lifespan he seized was truly substantive. Of course, his rapid breakthrough was primarily due to the mastery of the divine wood pure yang skill. If he were to invest 1,000 years of lifespan, could he possibly reach the elixir formation realm in one go, or even touch upon the nascent soul realm? Guan lost himself in boundless reveries. The more spiritual energy he absorbed, the more the forest seemed to be engulfed in a tempest, violently shaking, with leaves falling everywhere in the darkness. They appeared like demons and ghosts bearing their fangs and claws. This commotion is a bit exaggerated. Guan ruefully thought to himself, recognizing the downsides of evolving cultivation with lifespan, excessive noise that drew unwanted attention. After evolution, it wasn't a case of cultivation level increasing out of thin air but compressing the necessary spiritual energy into one period for a rapid breakthrough. Such was the turmoil from the 9th layer of the Qi cultivation realm to the 5th layer of the foundation establishment realm. What kind of earth-shaking disturbance would it cause when he attempted to break through from the elixir formation realm to the nascent soul realm? During the breakthrough, should other cultivators be attracted, that would be bad news indeed. Guan made it a habit to plan for the worst scenarios. No good. He had to be even more careful in the future. Guan decided to invest a year of lifespan into his cultivation level each day going forward, advancing step by step. Time swiftly passed and the night was engulfed by a fierce wind. Guan's robe billowed with the gusts as the spiritual power within him grew rapidly. A short while later, his aura suddenly shifted. Foundation establishment successful. His Danshan transformed, generating spiritual power even quicker while also stimulating his bones and entire body to become stronger. It wasn't over yet. His cultivation level kept soaring, as clouds of dust mixed with grass clippings swirled around him, the sound mighty. Foundation Establishment Realm 2nd Layer. Foundation Establishment Realm 3rd Layer. Foundation Establishment Realm 4th Layer. Chapter 13, Chapter 13, I only remember his kicks were very fast. Guan was not pleased by his rapid breakthrough, as he constantly felt a taut string in his heart, fearing that someone might come. The Supreme Sect was so vast, and in the 100 miles around Medicine Valley, it was rare to see a trace of anyone. Could he have avoided alerting the great cultivator? As Guan was thinking, he suddenly sensed two powerful presences approaching from afar, stronger even than Chu Jingfeng had been initially. Whatever you fear always comes true. He was in the middle of advancing from the 4th to the 5th level of the Foundation Establishment Realm and couldn't conveniently rise, and even if he attempted to flee now, escaping those two would be difficult. Big trouble. Guan nervously felt the two encroaching presences, and when they were less than 100 yards apart, they stopped on the opposite sides of a mountain peak. He was in a dim forest, dressed in a dark green robe, and the dust flying around made it hard to see his true face. Sensing that the two were not aggressively coming over, Guan sighed in relief. It seemed they were wary of him as well and dared not disturb him rashly. Guan's cultivation level continued to increase. With movements being so loud and due to being separated by a mountain, he couldn't hear the two people's conversation, making him constantly unable to relax. By the time he broke through to the 5th level of the Foundation Establishment Realm, the two on the other side of the mountain had still made no move. Guan's rate of cultivation growth began to slow down. He lifted his right hand, pressing it against the tree trunk behind him, connecting his spiritual power with the trunk. A green light appeared on the trunk, winding around his palm. As the green light completed its circuit, he withdrew his right hand and pulled a piece of wooden mask directly from the tree trunk. He placed the mask over his face and with the fingers of his other hand, he carved out 2 eye holes, the carved portions falling away, leaving a complete mask over his face. Spiritual power continued to drill into his body, but he was already able to stand up. Feeling that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was settling, a loud voice came through. May I ask which Daoist friend is breaking through here, and why not do it within your own cave? This voice was very serious, clearly suspecting that Guan was not a disciple of the Supreme Sect. Guan hesitated about whether he should respond. He was just a servant disciple. Having succeeded in foundation establishment within a few years of joining, even though he could smoothly enter the outer sect, risks still remained. The noise he caused tonight was too great. If those two knew his identity, surely a third and fourth person would come to know, and what if someone harbored malicious intent against him? It was no wonder Guan was overthinking. Having grown up as a house servant, he was all too familiar with the vicious nature of people. Guan, while tying the mask with vines, pondered with eyes flashing cold light, gleaming eerily in the night. Not possible. He couldn't expose himself. Guan didn't want to get embroiled in trouble. Even becoming an outer sect disciple wasn't necessarily good for him. The Supreme Sect would not foster disciples for nothing. Outer sect disciples had to undertake sect assignments, inevitably placing themselves in mortal danger. Once his cultivation was completely stable, he stood up, his face obscured by the mask except for his eyes, still surrounded by spiraling currents of energy. At that moment, he sensed two presences swiftly approaching from the mountain. Clearly, they now considered him an intruder. Guan dared to keep silent also because he assessed that their cultivation levels were not very strong. If he felt they were too powerful to contend with, he wouldn't have thought so much. He immediately turned and dashed deeper into the forest. Whoosh! A slicing sound came from behind Guan, and he looked back to see a cold gleam rushing toward him in the dim forest, breaking branches along its path, followed by a woman. This woman was dressed in white, her right arm extended straight, her palm facing the sword handle, connected by spiritual power. The blade emitted a fierce sword chi, unstoppable, flashing like a startled swan through the forest. In an instant, her sword had reached Gu An's back, less than half a yard away. Gu An's left foot landed, his body shifted backward, and as he simultaneously crouched with his left leg, the blade just flew over him. The woman in white widened her eyes, her face enveloped in shadows of the night, but the blade light shone right into her eyes, those stunning, shocking eyes filled with astonishment. Time seemed to slow down, but it was over in a blink. As Gu An crouched, his right leg kicked backwards, striking the abdomen of the woman in white with a force she had never experienced before. Her consciousness plunged into oblivion, and blood spewed from her mouth. Thud! The woman in white flew back,